The way in which he spoke of the holy ones of Israel with such contemptuousness was surprising to my eyes. Another friend who sat with us joined the opinion of our mutual friend in his portrayal of the image of the anointed of God as a tainted individual whose every action was grounded in corrupt interests and characteristics. Without elaborating, I was shaken to the depths of my soul. As one who researches, studies, and loves the revered image of King David, the pain sliced deep. When I inquired as to from where they drew this distorted historical knowledge, they said that they read these facts in a specific book, which I don't find appropriate to mention by name, that was written by a woman who in the past was ultra-Orthodox. I attempted to explain, to reason, to clarify, but the reaction was, "That's what she wrote." I asked them, "Did you try to read the Hebrew Bible? The works of the sages? The commentaries?" And the reaction was, "Who has the time and stamina for that? Her book is so easy and pleasant to read." It is now many years that I have been learning and teaching the Bible and facing students' questions about their impressions of the great ones of Israel. Questions that flow from sources external to Judaism, and that cause a distortion of the characters, in an attempt to distort and design anew the collective memory regarding the morality of our people and its revered customs. I took the book which had been spoken of, and I tried to read it, but because of the nature of the distortion, I was not able to continue. I wanted to chase away the darkness by screaming, but at night, when my heart screamed, I remembered that one can only chase away darkness with light. I had the desire to write in a manner attainable for all, to allow my friends and readers, who do not spend their time in the house of study, to recognize the image of King David through hundreds of sources of tales and books, which have accompanied us for thousands of years, and to present an innovative commentary. In my profession, I am a scribe of biblical texts, really. On my agenda was the writing of a Torah scroll. After the preparations and logistical arrangements which were involved in this, I sat myself down to write the Torah scroll, but then something happened. My hands held paper and pen in place of the parchment and quill, and for approximately 4 consecutive hours I began to write, letters combining into words, transforming into sentences, in turn combining into paragraphs and complete pages. Page after page, folio after folio, the chapters flying off and away. Like a hot, fluid geyser that bursts forth from below the surface of the earth into the air of the world, screaming to teach and tell of the awesome image and character of King David. In the evening, I sat with my wife. She asked, "Nu, did you start the writing of the Torah scroll?" I smiled and answered her, "Yes and no." My wife laughed. She is not accustomed to evasive answers from me and requested that I explain myself. I said, "Could you perhaps read what I wrote today and tell me what you think?" After a short while, my wife returned to me a bit shocked and teary-eyed, and told me emphatically, "The Torah scroll will have to wait. You must finish this book. The world needs it." The writing took approximately 2 years, in particular the clarification of Jewish sources, the Bible, Talmud, Midrash, Zohar, the earlier and later biblical commentators, tens and even hundreds of books which we included all helped to clarify the image of David, the King of Israel. The book about the life of King David was published under the name The Love of King David, and it elicited incredible responses from hundreds of thousands of readers, but always with the following questions. What about the rest of the biblical warriors? What about other books? So I started writing about Moses, our leader in his generation, a project that lasted approximately another 2 years, which morphed into the title, The Generation of the Wilderness. But before it was published, the question arose. Why don't you begin from the beginning? I jumped into the stormy waters and wrote The Genesis Days, which also took approximately 2 years. I knew immediately that another question would arise. But what about the books of Joshua and Judges? You need to connect the Torah with King David. A long 2-year journey, the book, The Days of the Judges, was ready. Now the books are presented to you as the series, The Hidden Treasures, which unwrap the history of the world from the creation story through the life of King David. The question of, what about the Book of Kings, has now reached me, and I am currently on the fascinating journey into the nadirs of the days of the kings. It stands to reason that it will take at least another 2 years. Introduction. Throughout the world, the Bible is known as the Book of Books. It tells about the creation of the world and the development of all the creatures in it, up to the formation of nations in general and the people of Israel in particular. Throughout human history, the Bible has been translated in its entirety into hundreds of languages, and parts of it into thousands of languages. Hundreds and thousands of collections of legends and lore have been compiled over the years about this book, and they have become the legacy of all mankind. Some are based on official, trustworthy sources, others are the product of their authors' imaginations. The intense thirst to know the biblical story according to reliable sources is growing. However, this remains a challenging endeavor, as the archaic texts and largely inaccessible commentaries bring the vast majority of people to despair, as if drawing from an empty well. The Lost Treasures series seeks to address this dilemma. Anyone who wants to study the biblical story may now do so without having to try and deduce the content of the narrative from hundreds of secondary sources. In response to the modern reader's great desire to gain access to and experience the reality of the ancient world, the series presents the text in readable prose. The reader is brought from the beginning of creation into the magical world of the Bible and its protagonists, who become flesh and blood, human beings. Theirs is a suspenseful, moving and sweeping saga, presented by interweaving the lexicon of the Bible with clear and pleasant contemporary language. The first book in the series, Genesis Days, tells of the creation of the world and the first millennia of humanity. The second book in this series will take the reader from the arrival of Jacob and to his descendants in Egypt. I hope that reading this book provides you, dear reader, with a pleasant and exciting experience, both instructive and enlightening. Chapter 1. Creation. Before there were creatures or emanations, God existed on his own in the world. There was no sense of time or space, just he, and nothing else, existed. There can be no king without subjects, nor can a benefactor bestow benefit without beneficiaries. God thought to himself, I will make a people for myself, to receive my good and to reveal my kingship. A people who will walk straight upon my path, whose attributes will be exemplary and who will have a positive influence through the good they do. The people of Israel are straight, Yashar, with God, El. They will be my flock, and they will teach my will, showing all the creatures I create the correct path to follow. A people who will sense my being among them, children faithful to their heavenly Father. This was simply the force of divine will, uncompelled, as there was no one else to compel the Creator. I will create tools by which my people may receive the good I wish to bestow upon them. I will create the Torah, to give them laws and statutes to guide my people as to what is desirable and what is objectionable. I will create heaven and hell, to reward those who follow my path, and to refine those who stray from the path of good. I will even create a throne of glory, a spiritual world devoid of any physicality, through which my children will be able to connect to me. Finally, I will create the upper temple, a site at which my presence will be contracted, so that my children may serve me. Naturally, my children will stumble, they will violate my laws and commandments, so I will create the option of repentance, so that the world will not despair of returning to fulfill my will. There must also be a leader among them, a person of impeccable character, understanding and wise in fulfilling my will. A person who will guide them to the culmination of perfection. a person who eschews evil, and whose whole aim is to reveal to other people that there is a sovereign and ruler, who created them out of his love for them, a Messiah who will direct them along my path. A great deal of time passed. It was undefined time before the past, present, and future existed. God created and destroyed many worlds, playing with the letters of the Torah, assembling combinations to express what he sought from his handiwork, preparing the tools of creation itself. Spiritual worlds were created, one above another, one touching and adjoining the next, for the sake of the souls of Israel. The 22 letters of the alphabet are 22 spiritual forces, which were combined in various, sundry ways to write the Torah. Each letter vied to be the first in the Torah, as the original point of creation, but it was the second letter, Bet, which was chosen for this position, as it is the initial letter of blessed, Baruch. This was meant to teach all creations that the Elif, the first letter, the essence of divinity, could never be fully grasped by any other mind. All the spiritual worlds awaited the creation of the physical world, so that they might serve their Creator. Silence, far more profound than the mere absence of sound, reigned, waiting without the reality of time. Bereshit, God pronounced, in the beginning. This was the first word of the Torah, as an infinite light which penetrated all the physical elements that filled up all of reality. Space, time, and matter were created in one instant. Water, Mayim, spread throughout the space, expanding further, while the boundless land split even further. Darkness and light served in confusion, chaos, and nothingness. There was a lack of limits or order that prevailed throughout the created universe. A wind filled the open space with air, oxygen, carbon, and other materials from which creatures would draw out their own sustenance. This pure light, God thought to himself, is not appropriate for regular people. It is a light by which one can see from one end of the world to another. Such light must be stored away for the righteous who follow my path to enjoy in future times. So, the light was hidden away, and a new light shone, a light without luminaires. Light and dark must be separated. They cannot function simultaneously. Each one should rule half the time. This will teach my creatures that after the darkness, the light will always break through again. After every bad thing, good arrives. Light and darkness were separated, and each one functioned on its own. I will call the light day, and I will call the dark night. And it was evening, and it was morning, one day. Thus, the unique first day of creation concluded. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Matter was torn, split, and divided, one part from the other, an upper part and a lower part. A firmament separated from the physical matter came into being above the lower waters, while the upper water existed above it. Ish, fire, and Mayim, Sham, there is Mayim, Sa, bear, Mayim, lifted and suspended by royal decree. Division was created between the upper water and the lower water. The upper waters ascended, cleaving to the rock which hewed them, to distance themselves from the place which would be subject to the lower infirmities. The lower waters also wanted to be included, but for the sake of the upper waters, they remained below. And God called the firmament heaven. And there was evening and there was morning, a second day. Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. The lower waters got mixed up with each other as they retreated from the dry land, and flowed into different gatherings of water to reveal solid land, a dry and arid land, with nothing upon it but earth and clods of dirt. Let the land put forth herbs and grasses according to their kind, trees with fruit containing seeds for new trees, which will sustain the animals and people I will create. The land sprouted herbs and trees, reaching towards but not yet breaking the surface. And it was evening and it was morning, a third day. Light without luminaires are likely to confuse people, as if there is some independent existence to light apart from me. Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. So, the two great luminaires were suspended above the earth, with the sun and the moon, holding equal in size and intensity. Master of the universe, the moon said. Can two kings share a crown? How can we be the same size? Because you criticized the sun. I am minimizing you. You will only get your light from the sun, God said, and the moon shrank. The moon protested, Am I to be punished for telling the truth? Certainly, even were you correct, it is not your place to criticize the sun. However, to put your mind at ease, I will give you a legion of stars, by which my people Israel will count the festivals, the months, and the years. And it was evening, and it was morning, a fourth day. Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let fowl fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. In one instant, without any progenitors, the waters swarmed with life, uncountable fish and sea creatures, massive whales, fish in stunning hues filling the water. Dolphins jumped out of the water with youthful exuberance, chirping back and forth. There were sea snakes and starfish, corals and anemones. There were fish in rivers and fresh water, fish in every hue filling the empty waters. From the mire and mud, every shade and shape of bird emerged. Eagles and hawks, parrots and songbirds, birds of prey and nightingales taking wing and flying over the earth. The rooster and the hen together produced fertilized eggs, as well as creatures with the power to bear offspring in their own images. Great sea monsters were then created but immediately destroyed, to prevent them from reproducing and destroying the world. And it was evening and it was morning, a fifth day. Let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after its kind. Dust was kneaded and shaped to create creatures great and small. Horses and cattle, rhinoceroses and giraffes, zebras and deer, mice and cats, dogs and rats, lions and tigers, who burst forth from the kneaded earth and ran the length and breadth of the dry land. Everything is ready for the crowning glory of creation, man, who would repair the world. Man is to have intelligence, understanding, and wisdom, to be able with his mind to explore the goal of his life and try to acquire it. A creature which can overcome his lusts and control his actions. My handiwork, who is to rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the animals of the land. So on the sixth day of creation, during the first hour of the great first day of the month of Tishri, dust was gathered from the four corners of the earth, as if by the very own hands of the Creator. All of the fundamental elements of creation were combined in that clump of earth and were brought to the top of the mountain, which was one day destined to be the site of the lower temple, built by the people of Israel. In the second hour, that clump of earth was kneaded into a mass upon the mountaintop. In the third hour, the mass was delineated, separated into limbs, and arranged in correspondence to the creation of the upper worlds. The brain was on top with the ability to think and control. The emotions were found in the heart, which was positioned below it. Below the heart, the liver was placed in charge of human passions. The human form was thus completed, a tall and splendid being, utterly perfect. Like a 20-year-old at the apex of strength and beauty, one side male and one side female. In the fourth hour, God decreed, now the soul must be placed within it, with the power to think and to speak, and to have a mind which is similar to that of the upper worlds. As it were, the Creator bent over the human being to breathe the breath of life into his nostrils. In the fifth hour, man stood on his feet and considered the creation in which he had been created. His body was magnificent and resplendent. He was awed by what his eyes beheld, the Garden of Eden, with the beauty of the creation at the apex of its glory. Trees of all types and species raised their branches, laden with plump, colorful, splendid fruit. God then said to the human being, "Whatever I created solely for you. I am the king of the upper worlds, while you are the king of the lower worlds. Be mindful so that you do not ruin and destroy my world. If you ruin it, there is no one to repair it afterwards." "Lord, why did you create man? You know full well that they are destined to sin before you," the angels asked their creator. The angels were spiritual creations, appointed by their king, God, to manage things in the physical world. True, man is destined to sin, but also to return in repentance. What delight is there in creatures such as you, who cannot defy my word and must follow my path? Only in man do I find delight. Not only that, man has a greater mind than you. Can you give the animals different names? Do you have the ability to assess the nature of each and every creature I have created? God asked them. The angels wondered aloud, "Does man have this understanding?" You shall see very soon. In the 6th hour of the 6th day, man stood in the midst of the garden, looking eagerly at the wonder before his eyes. Many sundry animals passed before them, and they instinctively began to name the creatures. This should be called a dog, Kelev, because it is faithful, like the heart, Kalef, of man. This should be called a donkey, Hamor, because it is so materialistic, Hamri, and physical. This should be called a goat, Ease, because it's so brazen, Oz, and brash, stealing whatever it finds in front of it. Man spent a long time naming all the creatures which passed before them, to reflect the latent abilities each one had. As for me, I shall be called Adam, because I have been taken from the ground, Adama. And my Creator shall be called the Lord because of his dominion over all the creations of the universe. Adam thought despondently, "All of these animals are in pairs, male and female. They see each other. They can reproduce. But I am alone. Must I forever live in solitude? Is there no one among all the creations who could be my mate? What is the benefit of my being one entity with two sides? How can I reproduce? With whom can I speak? Every creation has its companion, except for me." Now, thought God, after Adam has made the request for a mate, I shall grant it. Adam shall sleep so the experience will not be painful as I separate them. I do not want this mate to be rejected because the process of creation is too bloody. It was in the 7th hour that Adam lay on the ground, distressed by the bitterness of fate, and as his eyes closed, he fell into the deepest of slumbers. Adam was then split in two, front and back, each one becoming its own being, as the sinew and skin covered the rear of each. Though these two were actually destined to reunite in love and become like one body again. From out of his deep slumber, a perfectly formed female arose to gaze at the freshly awakened man, from whom she had been taken. Adam opened his eyes and looked at the female hovering over him, who was gazing at him tenderly. A broad smile appeared on his face, and heartfelt joy filled him as he looked at his heart's desire standing before him. The man whispered with much gratitude to his Creator, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." The man rose up and grinned with elation. "Your name will henceforth be Haya," he said to the woman, "because you will be the source of all human life. To come." In the 8th hour, Adam and Haya became parents to 2 sons and 3 daughters. However, a malicious eye watched Adam and his wife as they stood among the trees of the garden, unashamedly. The malevolent observer was jealous of Adam. In the 9th hour, Adam walked through the Garden of Eden, enjoying the colorful fruit hanging from every branch of the trees, while his heart overflowed with happiness at the good bestowed upon him. "Adam!" the Creator's voice echoed in his ears. You may eat of the fruit of any of these trees except for the tree in the midst of the garden. From that tree you must not eat, lest you die. Now I give you 7 more commandments, which you will transmit to all your descendants. These 7 commandments will sustain the world and all the creatures in it. Adam listened eagerly to his commander. First of all, you must not worship anything else but me as divine. Second, whenever a woman marries a man, she becomes his wife, and his alone. Third, you must not take the life of another human being. Fourth, you must eschew theft. Fifth, you must not blaspheme. Sixth, you must establish courts to judge and punish those who violate my commandments. As the 7th and last commandment, you must not eat the limb of a living animal. As long as an animal is alive, you may not consume its flesh. When it dies of its own accord, you may eat it, but you may not kill it in order to eat it. Adam ran to his wife to tell her about the commandments he had just been given. Listen, my wife, please, he said to her. The Lord has told me that we may eat from any tree in the garden, except the tree in the midst of the garden, which we may neither eat from nor touch. If we violate the Lord's commandment, we will die. Therefore, you must take heed neither to touch nor to eat from this tree. Adam continued to instruct his wife on the rest of the commandments. He then resumed walking in the garden, thrilled and rapturous. He was grateful to God for the opportunity to fulfill his Creator's will and to give pleasure to his Maker in some way. Feeling incredibly content, he lay down to doze off. In the 10th hour, Haya was sitting with their children, playing with her offspring. We will call you Cain because I acquired Kaniti, a man-child from God. We are now partners in the creation of human beings. And we will call you Abel, because to our dismay, we came to the world in vanity, Hevel, and in vanity we will be taken from it. Chapter 2. The Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil. Greetings. The woman was surprised and startled by the sibilant voice hissing behind her back. Who are you? She asked the creature, whirling around. My name is Samael, and some call me the serpent, Nahash, he chuckled. With its cunning eyes, he considered the woman carefully. As someone as wise as you must know, I am called the serpent, because I know how to soothsay, Nashash. Who are these adorable ones? He whispered, as he looked at the 5 children lying on a multicolored bed of leaves. The serpent approached the woman and gazed at her children, stoking its secret lust for the woman, trying to seduce her. Aya watched, quite astounded, as the serpent approached. It stood on 2 legs while it reached for her with outstretched arms. She tried to resist, but she felt an unnatural power when he grabbed her. The seconds ticked by as the woman understood that something very wrong was happening here. She defied the serpent. What do you want? Why have you come here? All that concerns me is your welfare, the serpent whispered, enjoying the powerlessness of the woman standing before him. I want you to experience the truest good which you can experience. I do not want you to be blinded, because you are so good-hearted and innocent. I want you to get what you deserve. What do we deserve? Who would want to blind me? Her voice started to sound confused. Tell me, if you please, weren't you told not to eat or touch the tree in the heart of the garden? Didn't your foolish husband order you to stay away from the tree, telling you that this what the Lord has commanded? He asked her mockingly. The woman defiantly responded to the sniggering serpent. Yes, the Lord told us not to eat or touch the fruit of the tree, since this is a poisonous tree, and thus it is forbidden for us to come in contact with it. Tell me, can you show me this poisonous tree? Can you identify it for me? Of course, come with me, Haya said to the serpent, who then followed after her. She approached the tree, pointing at it from a short distance. This is the tree. This is the tree which you are forbidden to touch. The tree which kills all who come in contact with it? The serpent hissed in dismay. The fruits are so beautiful, a real delight to the eye, he said, as he began to stroke the bark of the tree, to Haya's astonishment. The woman gazed at the tree longingly, her feet bringing her closer and closer to the forbidden tree. Its fruits are indeed beautiful, far more beautiful than the fruits of all the other trees, she whispered, staring at its luscious fruits. From what I understood, God said it was forbidden to touch or eat from the tree, not referring to its fruit. However, it appears to me that Adam may have misled you, that he never received any such command. Now let's see if I'm right or not, the serpent said, deliberately pushing the woman with all his strength against the tree. Haya felt the shove propelling her towards the deadly tree. Fright and terror seized her as she grabbed onto the tree to keep herself from toppling over. The serpent's laughter boomed. You see, the tree neither kills nor harms. The opposite is true. Whoever fabricates such lies does not have your best interests in mind. This tree is better than all the other trees in the garden, so your husband forbade you to touch it and eat from its fruit. Just as touching the tree is not fatal, eating its fruits is also not fatal. Apparently, your husband does not want you to get what you deserve. Why would he lie to me? She asked in confusion. Oh, you poor naif. The serpent's voice sounded sad. If only you knew what awaits when you eat the fruit of the tree, you would not hesitate for even a moment. What will happen? Haya whispered as she stroked the coveted fruit hanging from the tree. If you eat from it, you will become like God. You will be able to create entire worlds. He too ate of these fruits, and by the power of eating the fruits, he created the world. Are you sure? Trust me, you know I'm not lying. Her hand was already wrapped around the fruit, so the woman simply plucked it. Her eyes opened wide at the sweetness of the fruit of the tree of sin and knowledge. You hate me, Haya shouted at her husband. Adam looked at his wife in amazement. It had only been a little while since he had left her with their young children, and suddenly he was being greeted with anger and resentment. What? Why are you? The woman's screams interrupted him. What have you heard? You hate me and lie to me. You probably want to leave me and marry another woman. Whom do you have your eye on? Do you not have a drop of pity for me and the children? We have been together just a short time, and you're already sowing wild oats. How could you do that to me? Haya burst into heart-rending wails with tears streaming down her face. Adam looked at his wife in amazement, trying to figure out what she was going through. I do not know what you are talking about. Why do you think I hate you? When have I lied to you? What other woman could I possibly marry? Don't you dare say that. You think I don't see her following you, looking at you all the time? Haya cried, weeping bitterly. Adam, his gaze downcast, murmured, Will you just tell me what you mean? With unconvincing innocence. You know very well who I mean. The same one who walks around with the serpent all the time? The female who walks in front of the serpent, while it trails behind. That one with the sly come-hither eyes. Haya screamed, totally out of control. Adam tried to put a conciliatory smile on his face. Ah? That one. What is that female to me? That's the serpent's mate. Why would I think of it when I have you, my dear? Do you really think I'd leave you for that? You are my wife, the mother of my children, and my soulmate. Why would I stray anywhere else? Adam looked at Haya seriously. You are everything I have in the world, the bone of my bones, the flesh of my flesh, the joy of my heart, and my life. A choking cry emerged from the woman's throat. So you love me? She asked with teary eyes. You're not looking for another woman? Certainly, my wife. How could there be a more perfect woman than you? The crown of creation, the culmination and apex of the Maker's actions in forming the universe. He said to his wife in a soft and comforting voice. Really? Nothing but the truth, my soulmate. Adam smiled at his wife calmly. Very well, I believe you, said the woman and sat down. Come, sit with me and eat something. Adam sat down in front of his somewhat relieved wife and looked at the eye-catching fruit that she had served him. It looks like the fruit of that tree which is forbidden to us, Adam thought to himself. But my righteous wife surely would not let me eat anything forbidden. Adam looked at his chastened wife soothingly and took a juicy bite of the fruit. You know, we are being immodest to walk around like this. Adam told Haya, we are naked before all, like the beasts of the field. You are right, we must sew some garments, at least a belt to cover the modest parts of our body, the woman agreed. The man and the woman plucked leaves from the fig tree and covered their bodies. I still feel naked, Adam told his wife sadly. Not in my body, but in my soul. I feel that something is happening inside me, and I do not know what it is. In the 11th hour, a sound was heard in the garden that sent chills through the body of Adam and his wife. Through a strong wind, the voice of God was heard walking in the garden that evening. Adam and Haya hid themselves among the trees in an attempt to conceal their shame and disgrace. Where are you? The call was heard. They both understood that the one question encompassed many others. Where are you hiding? Where have you ended up? Why are you hiding from me? Do you not know I am omniscient? I heard your sound in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. It is not proper to stand naked before a king, and therefore I was ashamed, Adam murmured, his heart full of wonder at the strange feeling of shame that inundated him. Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat of the tree from which I had forbidden you to eat? It was with a punch in the gut that Adam realized with shock the nature of the unfamiliar emotions surging through him. He understood where they emanated from and how they had wormed their way into him. Suddenly, the bizarre conversation between him and his wife a short time earlier made sense, along with their reconciliation, as they ate the spectacular fruit his wife had served him. The woman whom you gave to be with me, gave me of the tree, and I did eat, he whispered, gazing contemptuously at the shamefaced Haya, even as he recognized that in doing so, he was showing ingratitude for the very thing he had asked God for. What is this you have done? Haya was asked by God. A torrent of tears poured from the woman's eyes as she realized what the serpent had done to her and the way it had managed to seduce her into violating her Maker's will. The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat, she whispered as she sobbed. It infected me with the poison of its wickedness and caused me to eat of the fruit of the tree. The evil it injected into me caused me to make my husband sin, since he knew that my husband would leave me if he found out I had transgressed. Because you have done this, cursed are you from among all cattle, and from among all beasts of the field. Upon your belly shall you go. God said in anger to the serpent, as he enjoyed watching his victims caught in their ruination. The upright serpent felt invisible hands gripping it and ripping off its arms and legs from its body. A horrible scream was heard from one end of the world to another, as its gleaming multicolored skin was stripped off of its body. The serpent, as it lay on its belly, opened its mouth to defend itself. There is no defense for a seducer and an enticer, God replied. The tongue of the serpent was caught and torn to pieces so that all the creatures of the world would know that no creature should be suborned to sin. And dust shall you eat all the days of your life, the curse continued. Whatever you eat will not bring you joy. Your food will always be at hand so that you never need to appeal to me with any request. The mortified serpent tried to coil within itself to avoid the rage being poured upon it. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. They shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise their heel. There will be a constant hatred on the part of her seed toward your seed. Wherever they see you, they will try to crush your head, while you will be able to hurt them only at their heels. Adam and his wife watched the serpent writhing in pain on the ground. And you, for causing your husband to sin, God turned to Haya, who was trying to hide from the rage directed at her. I will greatly multiply your pain and your travail. In pain you shall bring forth children. The pain of childrearing, the difficulties of pregnancy, and the agony of childbirth will be your lot. Comma. And your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. God's fury then turned on Adam. And you, because you did not investigate and inspect what your wife gave you to eat, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree, of which I commanded you, saying, You shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil shall you eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herbs of the field. The tears began to flow from Adam's eyes, causing him to wonder in dismay, Will I and the animals eat from the same trough? God said to Adam, In the sweat of your face shall you eat bread, till you return unto the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and unto dust you shall return. You shall eat human food, but only after you toil to produce it. And when you die, you will be buried in the earth. You will no longer belong to the upper spheres. Until when? Adam winced. Until a man is born circumcised. Adam looked at his wife Haya, as the light that once shined from her became dimmer and dimmer, and their bodies, which had once been enrobed in light, were now sheathed in skin only. Haya is no longer your name, but Eve, because you have acted like a snake. Hivia. From now on, you will be associated with the snake, so that you will not sin again. The skin stripped from the snake was cut and sewn into garments for Adam and Eve. If Adam eats from the tree of life, he will live forever and be able to deceive the people who will be born after him, to think that he too is a god, thought the Lord. So I will banish him from the Garden of Eden, so that he cannot partake in the fruit of the tree of life. Adam, Eve, and their children were banished from heaven to the material world to cultivate the land, Adama, from which they had been taken. The cherubim, fierce angels of destruction, were placed at the gates of the garden, who would prevent the unworthy human beings from entering inside there. They wielded the flaming sword which turned every way, as the opening to hell which would turn from burning to freezing for the evildoers, if they tried to break through into a place where they did not belong. Now the day was ending, as the sun about to set on the sixth day of creation. The sky took on a reddish hue as the sun set, the distant horizon ablaze. The roar of the animals crying aloud replaced the rustle of the fruit trees, which had been the lot of the inhabitants of the Garden of Eden. This sent tremors through the bodies of Adam and Eve. They shuddered and sweated as the light of the sixth day vanished, and were left looking at the arid earth, totally bare of trees and grass that had filled the place from which they had just been expelled. Sadness for all the creatures of the earth filled the heart of Adam. We have sinned against you, Master of the universe, and for this we deserve death. But how have all the animals and beasts you created sinned? If you do not bring down the rains, the animals of the earth will have no food, and they will all perish. Please, act for the sake of your glory. Bring down the rains to revive the soul of every living thing. Adam prayed, his hands outstretched, as he searched for mercy from above, towards the ruddy horizon. Rain then began to fall, watering the arid land, covering the land in pastures and meadows. Trees hidden beneath the surface of the earth, as if waiting for human prayer, burst forth from the bosom of the earth, bearing leaves and fruits. Adam watched the wonder unfold around him, watched the wild animals eagerly eat the fresh grass that had sprouted at the height of its glory on earth. However, his gaze turned to horror as before his eyes, the light dimmed, darkness and gloom beginning to descend upon the earth. He heard the sounds of Eve's frightened crying, the howls of their young children seeking some comfort in their mother's hands. The world is being destroyed because of me. Darkness is falling over the whole world. Adam whimpered in pain. You devastated your world because of me. My sins are causing all creation to return to chaos. I ruined your world instead of guarding it. Adam fell asleep. A deep slumber descending on him in the evening. In his dream, he saw the serpent's mate come to him and rub against him. Adam awoke in a panic, his eyes tearing. I created demons and devils in my sleep, he reflected, dismayed at his inability to guard his mind. For a long time, Adam and Eve sat in darkness, hours of prayer and supplication lest the land be destroyed. The falling rain washed over their faces, merging with the tears rolling from their eyes. They trembled, paralyzed by the terror of impending death, leaving them broken and desolate. They curled up, crying, trying to shield their children with their bodies, whimpering in voices that rent the heavens. It is the Sabbath, the day on which I completed my creation of the universe. It is a day on which all creation will be blessed. A day on which nothing is made or manufactured, no labor is performed, a day of rest, which testifies to the act of creation. Rest is the final element of creation. Without stopping, there can be no starting. It is the holy Sabbath. A light gleamed in the east, cracking the obscurity that enveloped the world, illuminating eyes blinded by darkness. A line of light spreading over the earth shone hope into the hearts of Adam and his wife. He does not want to destroy the world. We have sought forgiveness and atonement and found it. In awe, the couple watched, inspired by a sense of renewal. A psalm, a song for the Sabbath day. The melody rose from Adam's mouth. It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord and to sing praises unto your name, O Most High. Adam and his wife went out to dance in the presence of the Creator of the world. They went on singing and dancing for many hours in honor of their Creator, realizing that their lives had been granted to them with complete mercy. The hours passed and the sun tilted to the west. This is probably the way of the world, Adam told Eve as he saw her face darken as she watched the sun set. After every night there is a day, and after every day, a night. But I'm scared, Eve said in a trembling voice as she remembered their last period of darkness. They wouldn't stop crying the whole night through. A shudder gripped her when she heard a growl from nearby. Adam got to his feet, took a piece of pottery he had found next to him, and threw it at the ominous sound emerging from the dusk, hoping that would drive away the menacing creature. But that potsherd hit another, and a glimmering spark lit up the scene. Adam, gazing in amazement, ran towards the potsherds without thinking about the animal he was trying to drive away. He took 2 potsherds in his hand and began to beat them together. A spark ignited, lighting the leaves scattered on the ground. The flame drove away the darkness of the gloomy night, instilling confidence in the woman and her children. Blessed is the Creator of the lights of the fire, the man murmured, watching in astonishment the flickering wonder. Chapter 3. Cain and Abel. A quiet breeze blew through the stalks of wheat, which kissed each other as they elegantly danced. The rays of the late afternoon sun caressed the extensive pastures. The sound of the sheep's bleating was accompanied by the chirping of the birds, singing as the sun got ready to set. Cain was busy building an altar to offer a sacrifice to God as his father had commanded. He piled up stones, and on top of them he placed half-rotten stalks of flax, along with the roasted barley remaining from his midday meal. I have brought you an offering, as my father instructed, Cain said, sneering at his father's command. If you are hungry, bring down fire from heaven and consume my offering. Cain, laughing to himself, looked at the offering of leftovers he had placed on the altar he had built. Such nonsense, he thought to himself as he turned his back, returning to his labor. I do not know what came over my father to tell me to waste my valuable time in order to bring this offering. Cain turned his head to look at the altar. Perhaps something was happening. Apparently, my father dreamed that he made a sacrifice, and fire came down from heaven and consumed it. There is no limit to what a person can imagine, he chuckled to himself. How did Father put it? When I first saw the dawn and realized that God would not destroy the world, that he had accepted my repentance, I sacrificed a bull whose horns preceded its hooves. It burst straight out of the ground, head first. Cain gestured toward the altar with contempt. There are more important pursuits than such. Vanity! A man has to support himself, he thought as he turned back to his plow. Abel, a handsome young man, took a different approach to his brother, carefully placing one stone atop another, arranging them adroitly. His hands caressed the stones with reverence, his heart rejoicing at his father's command. He had a pair of lambs, carefully inspected to be unblemished, thick with snow-white wool. He slaughtered them and placed them on the altar. It is true that we are not allowed to kill animals, but the prohibition does not apply to animals that we kill in order to eat. Therefore, my father sacrificed before God that horn's first bull. Abel looked at the altar in hope, whispering a prayer from the bottom of his heart. Please, Father in heaven, accept my offering that lies before you, and accept my gift to you. A loud thunderclap shook the area, making the forest animals flee and the birds take flight. Abel looked at the fire that descended upon his offering, consuming every last trace. Thank you, Lord, he whispered as he fell to his face, tears of happiness filling his eyes. Cain, who had been on his knees, busy rooting out the thorns and thistles rising from the ground, sprung up, panicked. A pillar of fire descending from the sky was visible to him from afar. Cain began to run towards the fire to see what was happening. As he sped towards the column of smoke, towering over everything, he thought in disgust. It seems to be rising from where Abel is grazing his flock. I hope a bolt of lightning has finished off the bastard. Has he no shame? He takes 2 wives and leaves me, the eldest, just one. Cain stopped suddenly, looking at his brother Abel, who was bent over the ground in tears. In front of him was the altar above which the pillar of smoke rose. The smell of burnt flesh was in the air. What are you doing? He shouted contemptuously at his brother. Abel raised his head in amazement, looking at his brother approaching him. I offered a sacrifice to God, and God accepted my offering, he said innocently. I offered a sacrifice to God, and God accepted my offering, Cain imitated his brother mockingly. Who told you to sacrifice anything? And where did you get your offering? Father told us to make a sacrifice, Abel replied, puzzled at the question. See, fire came down from heaven and devoured the offering. It's just lightning. Stop imagining things. You sound just like Father, full of fantasies and tales about the Creator and offerings, he sneered. Abel, who was bigger than his older brother, got to his feet and looked with disgust at Cain, who was much thinner than him. You better keep your mouth shut, he said to his brother. The Creator and Father's sacrifice are not stories and imaginings. Really? Who told you that? Father, perhaps? Cain burst out laughing. You burned 2 sheep and you think God accepted your sacrifice? If there is a Creator at all, he is not interested in sacrifices. If the Creator exists, and he created all creatures, as Father told us, then why would he need sacrifices? Is he hungry? And if he is really hungry, will 2 sheep satisfy him? Abel looked at his brother, trying to figure out what motivated him to speak in such a way, searching for some positive angle from which to approach his brother's heretical declaration. My dear brother, you may not have understood what Father explained. God does not need sacrifices, and he is not hungry. Rather, he wants us to approach him and be willing to sacrifice our bodies and our lives to him. To prove that we are worthy recipients of the abundance of good he desires to bestow upon us. If we sacrifice all the flocks and herds, it would still not be enough, but we must make at least a token effort. Try it, brother, it is worthwhile for you. Bring an offering to the Lord and see. He will respond to your offering. I tried it, and I tell you there is nothing. I brought a sacrifice and nothing happened, Cain shouted angrily. Abel looked at his brother compassionately, realizing the despair he'd felt when his offering had not been accepted. What sacrifice did you bring, my dear brother? He asked gently. What does it matter? In your opinion, no matter what we sacrifice, it is irrelevant anyway. I sacrificed flax stalks and leftover barley from my lunch. I put everything on the altar and nothing happened. Just a waste of time and energy, Cain declared. No, brother. You had to sacrifice from the best you had, the finest flour and oil, the best fruits and vegetables. God wants to see that your heart is with him, and that you are willing to give him the best of the best, Abel explained. Stop preaching morality to me, scoundrel. Cain's face burned with rage. Are you not ashamed to lecture me? You are a thief. You took 2 women for yourself, while I, your firstborn brother, was left with 1. And even that was not enough. At the height of your audacity, you took Belibra to be one of your wives. I know the evil of your actions, taking Belibra, who is the most beautiful of all women, perfect in every way, to be your plaything. You will have sons and daughters from our sister Ima, but you will make sure Belibra never gets pregnant, to keep her as your plaything, so that her beauty will never fade, and she can remain your plaything forever. Why do you call me a thief, brother? Said Abel sadly. It is quite obvious that Kalmana should be your wife, and Belibra and Ima should be my wives. Abel tried to reason with his brother. You and your wife have straight black hair, while my wives and I have curly light hair. You and your wife have blue eyes, while my wives and I have brown eyes. You and your wife. Shut up already. Stop your nonsense. Do you think it interests me? You're a damned thief, trying to justify yourself now that you've been caught red-handed, claiming that you deserve what you stole. According to you, if Father's teachings are indeed correct, then you are a thief. And as a thief, you deserve the death penalty. It's a shame that Father is not applying that law to you. I'd happily do it, Cain shouted at his stunned brother. Cain turned away and left his brother alone next to his flock. I must be cautious around him, Abel thought sadly. I hope he does not try to do something foolish. Cain sat in his tent, his wife Kalmana noticing that her husband seemed angry and upset. What troubles you, my dear husband? She asked gently, trying to appease her grumbling husband. That is none of your business, he said angrily. Go out, make me something to eat and bring me water to drink. Cain looked at his wife in disappointment, thinking of the differences between her and Belibra, his brother's wife. And make sure it takes you long enough for me to have a bit of quiet, without you driving me crazy. Kalmana went out of the tent quickly, her gaze downcast as she teared up. Hurrying to do what her husband had asked, until she remembered his demand and slowed down, so she would not return before the rage had passed. She wanted to escape this place, but has nowhere to go. Cain sat on his mattress, heartsick and angry. He was shamefaced, trying to escape the thoughts troubling his mind. A feeling of disappointment and alienation from his source flooded his heart. Like a child, he had been rebuffed by his father, with disgust and rejection. Cain knew he had done something wrong, but he found a way to blame it all on the one who had turned him away. Suddenly he heard a voice within him. Why are you wroth? And why has your countenance fallen? Cain sprung to his feet, trying to see who was speaking to him, realizing there was no one he could see. Why am I angry? Why am I upset? He challenged the being surrounding him, defending himself against the one who had humiliated him. You know full well why. You did not want my offering, but you accepted my brother's offering. Why should I not be furious? Do you play favorites, valuing one soul over another? You are fully aware that I do not show favoritism, God replied in a conciliatory voice. If you do well, shall it not be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin crouches at the door. If you improve your behavior, I will happily accept you. If you do not improve your behavior, then it is you who will be responsible for your sin and your eventual punishment. But what can I do? Whispered Cain, shamefaced, knowing that his thoughts were an open book for the being speaking to him. I cannot stop thinking about her. I cannot stop hating my brother. You can do anything. Even though this instinct overpowers you, you can control it. You must not be ruled by your instinct. You must be the ruler and control it. You are the one who decides what you crave and lust for. You can direct yourself wherever you want. You can control your thoughts and desires. This is your ability and your responsibility as a human being, and this is the great task of your life. If you rule over your evil inclination, you will benefit from all the good, and if not, it will rule you until your final days. Cain looked up, staring at his wife Kalmana as she entered the tent, loss and rejection filling his heart, which was still preoccupied with Belibra, his brother's wife. Let me eat and get out of here, he hissed angrily at his wife. Kalmana, gazed downcast, put the food in front of her husband, and fled from the tent, humiliated and tearful. Thief, why do you herd your cattle on the land that belongs to me? Cain shouted at his brother Abel. Do you remember that we divided the world between the two of us? The land and everything connected to it is my domain, and you have everything which moves on its surface. So how dare you herd your animals on the pasture land that belongs to me? Abel sighed from the bottom of his heart, knowing that this was a mere pretext to give his brother an excuse to quarrel with him. If so, why are you wearing clothes made of wool? Why do you live in a sheepskin tent? He inquired of the red-faced Cain. The area on which the altar stands belongs to me, Cain challenged him, changing the subject. 40 years ago, my father built this altar when he brought his sacrifice, and therefore it is mine, because mine is the firstborn right. Because I am the firstborn, I deserve twice as much of everything on earth, so I take this place to graze my flock. Cain approached the altar with a sharpened rock in his hand, as if he were about to smash the altar's stones. I cannot let you do that, my brother, Abel said as he stood between Cain and the altar. This land is not yours to use. Anger flared in Cain's eyes. You are not just a thief, but a brazen one. You take Belibra for a wife, and now you want to take the land. Everything connected to the land belongs to me. You only have the things which move upon it. According to you, Abel grinned at his brother, Kalmana should be mine as well. She is not attached to the ground, she moves upon it. Although you do your best to push her down into the dirt with the way you treat her. Adulterer, you have set your eye upon my wife. Cain screamed as he dropped the sharpened rock and attacked his brother angrily. The sturdy Abel saw his brother running towards him with his eyes blinded by fury and wrestled Cain to the ground. Abel sat on Cain's slender body, one hand gripping both of his brother's hands, as the other clenched into a fist, raised to punch him in the face. Cain's face was filled with anxiety at the realization that his brother was far stronger, and that he was at Abel's mercy. Please, brother, Cain wept. Please, brother, forgive me. I do not know what happened to me. We are brothers, do not hurt me. If you injure me, you will be hurting mother and father deeply. And what of the master of the universe? What will you tell him if you harm me? Forgive me, my dear brother, for what I did, Cain pleaded, tears streaming down his face. Abel looked at his crying brother, feeling pity for him. He let his raised fist fall rather than pounding the face of his skinny brother. A few moments passed with Abel still sitting astride his crying brother. I hope you never repeat this folly, Abel whispered as he got up off his prostrate brother and walked towards his flock waiting for their shepherd. Cain rose from the ground and shook the dust out of his clothing. He felt the hatred for his little brother who had just humiliated him increase exponentially. He watched his brother walk away from him, eyes filled with contempt. Quietly, he approached the sharpened rock lying on the ground. His hands lifted the rock, concealing it behind his back. Silently, he snuck up on his brother, who was tending to his flock. Abel sensed his brother approaching, but he was confident that his brother would not be able to hurt him. Slowly, he turned to his brother to see what he was up to. Suddenly, Cain pulled out his hand from behind his back, raising it angrily to viciously attack his brother, slashing the palm of Abel's outstretched hand. The next swipe connected with Abel's thigh, splitting open his leg, forcing Abel to the ground in pain. Cain's face appeared demonic as he looked at the sprawled Abel. Now you will get what you deserve, adulterer. Cain taunted him, mercilessly smashing the rock into Abel's body as the latter screamed in pain. Blood splattered everywhere, staining Abel and Cain in crimson. Abel screamed in pain, trying to dissuade his brother from the awful act. Brother, what will you say to God? If you kill me. Horrible laughter burst out of Cain. I'll take care of that. Cain struck his prone brother again and again, trying to end his life, but Abel kept writhing. This beast does not want to die. Father slaughtered that animal by slitting its throat. Cain smiled grimly. So we will see if it works for this beast as well. Cain hacked at his brother's throat with the sharpened rock. A few seconds passed and Abel stopped wallowing. Now it's all mine, Cain smiled, dropping the rock and heading back to his tent. Kalmana looked at her husband returning from the field, his clothing dyed red with blood. Why are you looking at me like that? Get moving, get me water to bathe and bring me clean clothes, he said contemptuously to his wife. On the way, tell Belibra and Ima, Abel's wives, to come to me and pack up all of our belongings. I'm tired of living here. We're moving the encampment somewhere else. Did you hear those screams? Eve asked Adam, terror darkening her features. Eve, who had her own tent far from her husband's, came running pell-mell to see the husband she had avoided for 40 years. It sounds like Abel's voice to me, she whispered in fear, tears streaming down her cheeks. Adam, fasting and wearing sackcloth as he sat on the ground, looked up at Eve. His eyes were suffused with sorrow, regret, and mourning for the sin which he had committed by eating from the tree of knowledge 40 years before. What? I heard nothing, he muttered, his heart numb. There were screams from the altar you built, Eve said hysterically. It sounds to me like something terrible has happened to our baby, Abel. Adam got up and followed his wife reluctantly. Birds were circling above the altar, and they greeted Adam and Eve, and clean animals were clustered around the site. Eve dashed madly towards the spot where the animals had gathered, and Adam followed her. The animals scattered in every direction when they saw Eve and Adam running towards them, revealing the gruesome tableau to the now bereaved parents. Adam and Eve fell to the ground in grief as they wept over the loss of their younger son, mourning their bitter fate. The sound of crying could be heard far off as the parents embraced the bloody, broken body of their beloved child. Cain, Eve whispered in anguish, knowing of her firstborn's jealousy towards his younger brother. Surely, Cain is the one who murdered Abel, our blameless, virtuous son. Abel was capable of repair the universe, our hope to atone for our grievous transgression, Adam cried, knowing that his last chance to fix the damage he had done had now vanished. He knew himself and he could not overcome his desire. 4 decades of fasting and repenting could not keep him from running to Lilith, the serpent's mate, whenever he fell asleep. "What do we do now with the body of our dear son?" asked Adam in a tremulous voice, as he saw the sun about to slip below the horizon. The raven's call answered his question. Adam and Eve looked up at the sound. It was a raven digging in the ground and placing another raven's corpse in the pit, amid the dwindling twilight. "Apparently, we must do the same," Adam murmured to his wife. The couple began digging a grave with their hands. Finally, they placed their young son in it, their eyes blinded by tears. "Where is Abel, your brother?" The question rang in Cain's ears. "He does not know," Cain thought jubilantly. "I know not. Am I my brother's keeper?" His feigned innocence was repulsive as he argued. "Is that my job? I am not his guardian. Had you but asked me to watch over him, I would have done so gladly." "The voice of your brother's bloods cries unto me from the ground," the accusation rang out. "It was not only the blood of your brother you shed, but the blood of the millions of descendants who were to come from him as well." Cain's mind worked tortuously, trying to exonerate himself over his brother's murder. "It was not I who killed him, but the evil instinct you gave me that made me do it. You are the master of everything, and without you, no man can do anything. So, you let me kill him. In addition, had you but accepted my sacrifice, I would not have been jealous of him, nor would I have killed him. Also, had I ever seen a dead man? How could I know that he would die from my blows?" The curse was pronounced. "And now cursed are you from the ground, which has opened her mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto you her strength. A fugitive and a wanderer shall you be in the earth." Cain began to cry, overwhelmed by the punishment given to him, trying to turn back God's fury from upon him. "Master of the universe, you bear all of existence. Is my sin too great to bear? I regret what I did. I want to repent," he said, but his heart was not in it. "Because you have at least displayed confession and repentance, I will let you live. However, you must leave immediately and begin your wanderings," God commanded. "Whosoever finds me will slay me," Cain said, knowing that his protective shadow was gone and not even the forest animals would fear him. "You shall not die now, but at the end of 7 generations. Now, you shall bear on your forehead a mark of the animalistic crime you have committed," said the voice to Cain. Cain felt a sharp pain, as if his very skull were splitting open, as a truly beastly horn sprouted from his forehead. "And I give you this dog to guard you. An animal to protect an animal." Kalmana, outside the tent, screamed as a terrifying dog curled up at Cain's feet. A few minutes passed and the vision faded. Cain touched his forehead and looked at his new ally. The sound of crying outside his tent made him jump out of his skin. "Father and mother must be coming to make me pay for Abel's death," he thought apprehensively. Cain rubbed his eyes tightly to make them look reddish. With a tearful voice he moaned bitterly, striking himself in the head as he left the tent. "What have I done? I have killed my brother. I am evil. I, too, deserve to die. Death is better than life for me." Adam and Eve watched their only remaining son weep over the brother he had murdered. The anger that filled their hearts subsided upon seeing his bitter grief over the death of his younger brother. Cain fell at his parents' feet, shrieking, heartbroken. "Please kill me. I deserve to die. There is no place for the wicked like me in the world." He begged his parents. "Father, you must kill me. Avenge your son's blood immediately. Though the Creator forgave me for my sins, you must pour my blood upon the ground for what I did to my dear brother." Adam and Eve were left shocked by their son's performance. Did the Creator forgive you?" Adam asked in bewilderment. Yes, Cain wept. When I confessed the deed and repented, he forgave me for my iniquity. Cain whispered between his sobs. What did the Creator tell you? Asked Adam. He told me that he had accepted my repentance, but in order to atone for my crime, I must go wandering. Cain replied to his father. Adam, excited, clapped his head with his hands. This demonstrates how great repentance is. He thought to himself. It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord, he said aloud. You must do now what the Creator has told you. You must gather your belongings, and you and your wife will go together on the journey which has been decreed for you. Adam commanded his son. What will happen to Belibera and Ima, the wives of Abel? I must take these poor unfortunate souls with me. It is my fault that they have become widows, he said to his father, hoping to convince him. No, Adam resolutely ordered. It is not fitting that after murdering your brother, you will inherit his wives. These unfortunates will have to wait until more sons are born to me and your mother. You will not take them. My offspring will never associate with your offspring. With sorrow and heartbreak, Cain collected his belongings and set out with his wife Kalmana on the long journey. His dog walked in front of them, navigating, chasing away the beasts of prey, trying to drive him away from any spot where he tried to pitch his tent. He felt the ground vibrate beneath him whenever he tried to settle down in a specific location. For the first years of his wandering, Cain refused to father children, thinking of the burden that would be placed on him to carry offspring along with him on his endless trek. Then an idea flashed through his mind, convincing him to reproduce. The decree of wandering is upon me, but not upon my son. I shall have a son, and I shall build a city for him to dwell in. I will even name the city after my son. A year later, Cain and his wife had a son, and he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. As the years went by, Cain and his wife had more sons and daughters. Their firstborn Enoch gave birth to Irad, whose son was Mehujael. Mehujael's son was Methuselah, who fathered Lamech. We dissent. We think it more fitting that you destroy the world you have created and all that is in it, especially man. The supernatural beings Uzzah and Azazel told their creator. Adam was unable to overcome his lusts, and because of his sin with Mother Lilith, we were created. Surely all other men will not be able to restrain themselves and keep from sinning with women, they sneered. Humans cannot control themselves. They are weak and have no faith and loyalty to you. Their only desires are to pursue the pleasures of the world. They are not like us. They are mindless, unable to understand that the pleasures of the world are nothing but a trick, imaginary and illusory. Better that you lay waste to them and put us in charge of your world. That is the only way the world will reach the improved state you so desire. Then it seems we must see how you withstand the test, God decreed. Uzzah and Azazel were sent down into the world, in human form. Chapter 4. Lamech. Ada. Lamech the blind shouted at the top of his lungs, to his wife sitting outside the door of the room. Ada entered the room, chastened. Why do I even have to tell you to bring me and my dear Zillah something to eat? You are so dense that you do not understand that people need to eat. Get moving, or you'll have to explain yourself to my fist. Lamech screamed in the direction of the door. Yes, my lord, Ada said, shamefaced, and left the room, seeing the tear in the corner of her sister Zillah's eye, lying at the feet of their blind husband. I do not know what to do with this ugly woman, Lamech sighed to her sister. So what if she takes care of the two boys, Jabal and Jubal? She thinks that because she is a mother to the children, she has to rest all the time. I'll get you something to eat, my beloved husband, Zillah said in an attempt to ease some of the burden on her sister. God forbid, my dear, said Lamech in shock. Why should you trouble yourself? It was not in vain that I took you to sit in my shade, but to savor your beauty. If you start working, you will look like Ada. You have to take it easy, or you will ruin your beauty. I gave you that wonderful potion, which spares you from the suffering and sorrow of pregnancy and birth, and enduring the burden and onus of bearing babies and raising children. Thanks to me, you, my love, will remain gorgeous forever. No pregnancy, no birth, no responsibilities. For that, your sister Ada exists. Well, I have a surprise in store for you, Zillah thought as her lips formed a smile Lamech could not see. Despite your magic potion, she reflected silently, I am now with child. So much for your grand plan. Well, my husband, you are the one who decides, she said aloud, grinning mischievously. The door opened and Ada brought her husband and his wife food to eat. Zillah looked lovingly at her tormented sister. A smile appeared on Ada's face as Zillah gestured to her belly, hinting to her sister that she was now pregnant. Months passed, and Zillah gave birth to a son and a daughter, Tuval-Cain and Anama. Tuval-Cain grew up to be a blacksmith, forging weapons of war. His sister Naama, who was perfect in her beauty, became renowned throughout the land. All the nobles in the area bowed down to Lamech in an effort to win the hand of his stunning daughter. Lamech gloried in the respect and prestige with which he was regarded for being the father of such a beauty, while her mother's looks had faded with the passage of time. Zillah, summon our boy Tuval-Cain. I want to go hunting, and I need him to guide me, Lamech demanded one day. He still resented what pregnancy and childbirth had done to Zillah's beauty. Zillah considered her husband and his misery over the children she had borne him. What a fool, she thought to herself. He cannot not see me, but he is distressed by my looks. My face is invisible to him, but he is concerned about every wrinkle, mark, and blemish on my body. It is sheer arrogance and conceit on his part. He just wants to display me to his friends because a wife is merely a piece of art. A piece of art is sterile and untouched, rather than one that brings more beauty into the world. Her face radiated happiness as she recalled how awful it had been in the past. Those days when friends and acquaintances would gather in their home for the presentation of Lamech's beautiful wife. Now she was spared the indignity, but her daughter, Naama, was being put on display for the rich and powerful. I'll call our son right away, she told her husband, accentuating the term, our son. Lamech and his son Tuval-Cain set out for the forest. Tuval-Cain led his elderly father, who wanted to preserve his youthful practice of hunting despite his failing eyesight. At the approach of human voices, the thickets in the forest rustled as the wild animals fled from their invaders. Meanwhile, above their heads, the birds of the forest took flight, making their own escape. Tuval-Cain presented his father with a new metal bow and arrow. Father, feel the bow, he happily said to his father. I finished making it just yesterday. It's incredibly precise. Lamech happily felt the bow. Give me an arrow. When you see an animal, tell me, and aim my hands. I haven't been able to hunt anything interesting in a long time. The father and son stood quietly in the heart of the forest, merging with the many trees and plants, disappearing into the undergrowth, their rhythmic breathing barely audible. The sound of forest animals and birds could be heard once again. Tuval-Cain touched his father's shoulder, whispering in his ear, Father, prepare yourself. We have a very special animal in front of us. Lamech stretched the bowstring, readying the arrow to fire. His muscles were tense but maneuverable enough to allow his son to aim at the mobile target. Now, Tuval-Cain whispered. The metal arrow flew fast, cutting off the leaves of the trees in its flight, approaching its target, slicing open the throat of the strange beast. Yes, Tuval-Cain shouted, scaring the forest animals from their spots once again, happy that his aged father would return from his hunt triumphant. Did we hit it? Lamech asked, elated. Bullseye! Let's see what it is, he urged his son. They think your father is too old to be a mighty hunter. We will show them today, laughed Lamech, clapping his son on the shoulder as the latter led him to the spot. What is it? What kind of animal is it? Lamech joyously asked his son as Tubal Cain approached their quarry. Lamech felt the tension in his son's shoulder, felt his body tremble. Do not tell me we missed, Lamech muttered in disappointment. If only we had, Tubal Cain whispered with trepidation. Tell me, what is it? Lamech impotently stumbled over his son's words. What did we hit? It is a man with a horn coming out of his forehead, father. Tubal Cain's voice trembled. I fear that we have killed Grandfather Cain, he whispered. Lamech clapped his massive hands together, heartbroken at the realization that Abel had been avenged by him. His powerful hands smashed into the head of his son, who was turning to embrace and console him, fracturing the boy's skull in an inadvertently tragic act. Tubal Cain fell onto a bed of leaves and twigs on the floor of the forest. An awful moan issued from his throat as Lamech sensed that he had crushed his son's head between his fingers. Tubal Cain, he cried, falling to his knees alongside the lifeless bodies of his son and grandfather. Lamech, Tubal Cain. Lamech, prone on the ground over the bodies and weeping, could hear the calls in the distance. Lamech, Tubal Cain. Lamech raised his head from the ground, recognizing the voices of his wives. What can I tell them? He thought apprehensively. Even without this tragedy, they despise me. What will happen now? A rush of emotions hit him. Maybe it's better for me not to answer, to lie here among the trees, to be preyed on by the beasts of the forest. The thought of the forest animals chewing on his flesh while he was still alive sent chills through his body. But what will they do when they see what I have done? He sat for a few moments, trying to decide whether to answer his wife's call. He felt the cold of the coming night stealing into his bones. I cannot stay here, he decided. The wives heard the bitter cry in the distance. Listen, it sounds like Lamech's voice, Ada told Zillah. Apparently, the old man's hunting trip was unsuccessful, so he sits pathetically and weeps bitterly. Tubal Cain, where are you? Zillah called out loudly to the place from which the crying was heard. Tubal Cain, Lamech, answer me. Over here. Lamech's voice could be heard in the distance. The women looked in the direction of the voice, watching as their husband rose from the undergrowth. Stop playing games, hiding from us like you're some kid, Ada rebuked her husband as she approached him. Where is Tubal Cain hiding? She asked angrily. Have you not noticed that it will soon be night? The women advanced rapidly towards Lamech, searching for the mischievous Tubal Cain, expecting him to come out of nowhere and scare them. Where's Tubal Cain? Zillah screamed, seeing her husband's crestfallen face. Lamech, his gaze downcast, sensed that his wives were very close to him. Tubal Cain was killed, he whispered and burst into tears. Zillah and Ada ran quickly towards the place he pointed to, staring in horror at the lifeless body sprawled on the damp forest floor. Tubal Cain. The cries burst forth from the heartbroken mother, who rushed to hug her dead son's body. For a long time, Zillah and Ada held Tubal Cain's body in their hands, weeping over the glimmer of youth extinguished so swiftly. You, Zillah whispered to her husband with hatred. You murdered our son. Lamech twisted inwardly, searching for some way to explain the tragedy, realizing that his wives had not yet noticed the body of the slain Cain. I did not murder him. It was by mistake. I did not mean it. He tried to explain himself. We went out hunting, and then Tubal Cain told me to shoot an animal that was in the distance. I hit it, and we went to see what kind of animal it was, and Tubal Cain saw that it was my grandfather Cain. Lamech paused to motion his wives in the direction of Cain's body. The women's cries were renewed when they saw the patriarch of the family lying dead, an arrow piercing his throat. So, when Tuval Cain told me that the beast was not an animal but Cain, I slapped my hands together, accidentally striking poor Tuval Cain in the head, and he died on the spot, he said tearfully. These poor souls must be buried, Ada whispered to Zilla, seeing that the sun was about to set. There's nothing to do. It's going to get dark soon, and if we stay here in the heart of the forest, we'll be prey for the animals. Let's hurry up, my dear sister, she said sadly, as she began to dig graves for the child and the old man. The women dug for a long time, burying the bodies in the heart of the forest with weeping eyes. Then, stumbling their way out of the heart of the forest to their home, guiding their husband. What did I do? Lamech sadly asked his wives. Did I kill them on purpose? You know I did not mean it. It was an accident. Zillah and Ada refused to continue living with Lamech. We do not need you, they said angrily to their tormented husband. I will summon you to the court of Adam, he yelled at them. He'll tell you that you cannot do this. Do what you want. The women laughed, knowing that Adam had separated from his wife after the sin with the tree of knowledge. Lamech and his two wives entered Adam's room with reverence. They recognized that they were entering into the chamber of a being who was the direct handiwork of the Creator. Adam sat on the ground, face veiled in mourning. For years he had sat in that chamber, suffering, separated from all other human beings, in exile from his wife and offspring, a self-imposed exile. Lamech cleared his throat, drawing Adam's attention to him. My lord, Lamech said in awe. Unfortunately, I have committed a sin by my own hand. Inadvertently, I killed your son Cain, and my son Tuval Cain. Adam raised his face to Lamech, and Lamech could feel the grief in Adam's heart, hearing that his firstborn son had also died violently. His intellect told him that the matter had been foreseen. Adam stared at Lamech, thinking about what he could say to him. He sympathized with Lamech, who had killed his own son as well. Shaking his head, he spoke. Tell me what happened. Lamech began to tell Adam the story of his life, his wives, his children, and the unfortunate incident which had resulted in 2 deaths. Since the incident happened, my wives have been refusing to live with me. I've come to ask you to order them not to defy me, Lamech concluded. Have you repented? Adam asked. Lamech nodded affirmatively. For a year in total, I have been alone, regretting the horrible crime done by my hand. If so, wives of Lamech, you must not separate from your husband. The man has repented for the crime he committed. You must go back and live with him. This was his definitive verdict. The peals of laughter coming from the 2 women surprised Adam and Lamech. You must be kidding, it's true. He repented for a year. He's barely eaten and drunk all these months. But does that seem enough to you? You have been sitting in the same place for 130 years. Fungi has begun to grow on you because you are as still as a corpse. You cut yourself off from your wife and all your descendants for a sin you committed inadvertently. You have been sitting in your room, meeting almost no one for years, trying to atone for your sin. And you say that his single year of penitence for killing 2 people is enough? If so, apply this rule to yourself first. Stop cutting yourself off from your family through this self-imposed decree. Adam looked in amazement at the 2 women, realizing that there was truth in their words. You are right, he said after a few moments of silence. I took it upon myself, said Adam, and rose from the dirt in which he had sat for many years. The fungi on his flesh began to flake off one by one onto the uncultivated ground. Lamech and his wives watched as the great Adam stood up to his full stature, amazed at his beauty and perfection. I took it upon myself, he repeated with a smile. You too have taken it upon yourselves. The 3 bowed to the ground before Adam in reverence. We took it upon ourselves, the women murmured. 9 months passed, and Adam and Eve had a baby. Seth, Eve gently named her newborn, the appointed one. For God has appointed me another seed instead of Abel, for Cain slew him. Perhaps he will be the one who will allow us to repair our world. Adam and Eve went on to have many more sons and daughters over the years. When Seth was 105 years old, his firstborn Enosh was born. Have you seen her? Uzzah asked Azael in astonishment. How could you not? Azael answered, trying to keep his eyes from jumping out of their sockets. Uzzah sighed. She looks even more perfect than our mother. I must try to talk to her, he said, and started walking towards Naamah, enthralled. I'm coming with you, Azael chuckled, hurriedly trying to catch up to his brother running towards the woman. Naamah looked at the two individuals running towards her. These are not ordinary people, she thought with a self-confident smile. They look like the sons of God. With them, it seems worthwhile to bring children into the world. Naamah stood up and eagerly awaited her suitors. The two men stood in front of her, their eyes straining to escape their skulls. Are you? They asked in unison. Naamah smiled ingratiatingly. Happily, she replied to the two of them. 9 months passed, and Naamah bore a son, a strange and powerful boy. Asmodeus will be his name, she said with a smile when she saw her child. The king of all demons and spirits he shall be. After Uzzah and Azael had been with Naamah, they began to take from the daughters of Adam as they desired, ignoring the words they had spoken to their Creator. Their lust waxed ever hotter, yielding giants who filled the earth with their progeny. Uzzah and Azael were banished beyond the mountains of darkness by the Creator, so that they would not completely corrupt the face of the earth. Chapter 5. The generation of Enosh. It was late afternoon. The sun was inching westward, as if bowing to its creator before setting. Migratory birds flapped as they made their way through a sky painted in shades of yellowish purple, a pastoral scene. A gentle wind wafted past, blowing leaves high in the air. A large group of people gathered around their youthful leader, a brave man who had developed quite a reputation since he had been a little boy. His audacity and brazenness were widely renowned. He showed no fear or trepidation before any man or beast. He was always eager to commit acts of mischief and malice, a thief who gathered bands of miscreants who devoted their time to pursuing their pleasures and whims of the heart. Enosh, came the call from the ranks. Please tell us your history. Who are your ancestors? Enosh smiled happily at the question which had been asked at his behest. My father's name is Seth, he said proudly, anticipating the second question. And what was his father's name? Asked the questioner. Adam, he replied with a smile. And what was Adam's father's name? Here came the long-awaited question. My father's father had no father. The Creator himself made him, said Enosh, longing for the next question. How did he do it? He was asked. He smiled lightheartedly. It's no problem. I can do the same. My power is equal to that of the Creator, and I can make human beings as he did. The sounds of astonishment and wonder arose from the crowd, causing a tremor of joy throughout Enosh's body. I'll show you, he said, piling up dirt and shaping it into human form. Enosh, who was familiar with magic and spells, began to whisper over the lump of dirt all manner of bizarre and weird incantations and chants. The people assembled, looked at their leader, and started to fill with fear and excitement when they saw the earthen body jolt into movement. The mass of dirt into which Enosh had inserted a demon's soul with his spells rose to its feet. Bow before the creation of my hand, commanded Enosh. The exhilarated crowd bowed down to the image made by Enosh, ready to surrender their lives at the command of their revered leader. I am the Son of God, declared Enosh before his people, who looked upon him with veneration. Now back to your dust, cried Enosh. The earthen body collapsed in its place, merging with the dirt. There is no power but me, Enosh shouted happily as he watched his people bowing before him. What shall we do, our Lord? Asked the people, bowing before their glorious leader. How may we serve you? There is no king without ministers, and a king is honored when his ministers are honored. He began, delivering his doctrine. I am the Son of God, and I am the greatest of all his ministers. The Creator's desire is that you honor and pay tribute to his ministers. The host of heaven, the stars, and the constellations are also the ministers of the Creator, and you must honor them. You are insignificant, deficient creatures when compared to me, or to the host of heaven. So it is inappropriate for you to turn directly to the Creator. In order to connect to the Creator, you must worship his ministers. How are we to worship his ministers? One of the people wondered. You shall worship the host of heaven by making statues and graven images that will remind you of the mighty powers the Creator wrought. You shall offer sacrifices to them, and you shall turn to them in your time of need, Enosh instructed. However, you must worship me differently. I do not need sacrifices, nor do I desire a statue in my image. In order for you to have a relationship with me, you will bring me your young daughters so that we can mate and have important sons like me. In addition, 1/4 of whatever you own you must bring to me, and I will protect and keep you. The gathered crowd quickly ran to fulfill Enosh's will, crafting graven images, statues of stone, iron, and wood. They brought sacrifices to the heavenly powers, and they turned over their daughters to Enosh. Seth sat, struggling with the sorrow that filled his heart at the growing rumors regarding Enosh's exploits. Over the years, the tales of his son Enosh had come knocking at the door of his humble domicile, depressing his spirit. His son employed various pretexts to avoid meeting him, even though Seth desperately sought to return Enosh to the path of good. Seth had undergone decades of fasting and weeping before the Creator to help in an effort to reform his son. However, the scuttlebutt only grew louder and louder. Immorality and idolatry filled the earth, abominations that seemed to be indulged solely for the sake of angering and rebelling against the Creator. Depravity and desecration had become commonplace. Prostration, libation, and immolation were sacrifices before every idol and image. Robbery, thuggery, and bribery took place along every street in every city, any vice trumping every virtue. After receiving a prophecy, Seth decided to go in search of his son to return him to the path of decency. Discovering the whereabouts of Enosh was not a complicated task. From everywhere, pilgrims loaded up their young daughters on their animals, heading towards the ivory palace built by Enosh's command. Seth joined the wayfarers towards the residence of his wayward son. Father, what are you doing here? Enosh jumped out of bed when he saw his father standing there in tears. Seth's initial reply was a bout of weeping as he witnessed the profligacy of his firstborn. Why did you come here? Enosh asked emphatically. Woe is me, his father whimpered. Is this why you were created? To descend to the lowest depths? To be like an animal that constantly pursues its lusts? What are you looking for? Enosh shrieked helplessly as he looked at his father. His father could not stop crying. I am looking for my son, scion of Adam, the grandson of the Creator's own handiwork, cried Seth from the depths of his heart. But I find a creature worse than a filthy animal, leading himself and his entire generation to sin. Enosh looked at his aged father angrily, removing from his heart every glimmer of respect for his parent. Get out of here, old man, before I order my servants to kill you. My son, please, you can control your passions. Seth tried to dissuade his son. You can improve your ways and behave properly as the scion of Adam. A peal of laughter burst forth from Enosh. Control my passions? Why? I have everything I desire. Why should I act according to the laws dictated by your morals? And what is wrong with the laws I have enacted? Believe me, I really do not understand you and grandfather. You lot are wholly illogical. All your laws are against nature, trying to carve out a path for yourself that you perversely think is moral and superior. But think about it. If an animal does not devour the weak will remain alive, and their weaknesses and flaws will be passed on to the next generation. Does the creator of the universe not want us to perfect and correct his world? Now, as most people are fools and dupes, it is not possible for them to worship the creator directly, so I focus them on worshiping statues and idols. And because they are so inferior, I sacrifice too, mating with their daughters, impregnating them with wise and powerful offspring. You call them children of Adam, while I call them children of Enosh. Future generations should come from me, Enosh the Great. Enosh laughed at his agitated father. If you want, you too can join me. I assure you, you will enjoy every moment. Enosh stopped laughing for a moment as if remembering something. At last I understand how my firstborn Kenan turned out so odd. He's just like his grandfather. Abstaining from everything, lonely and praying all day. He is already 40 and has never seen a woman. I invite him to join me in the festivities, but that fool refuses every time. Maybe you ought to take him with you. He drives all the people here crazy. Unfortunately, I ended up with an idiot son who fails to understand the pleasures of life. Seth looked at his lustful son and realized he could not change his ignorant mind. I have a prophecy to deliver to you, he said firmly. Soon the Lord will cleanse the world with water. He does not want to wipe away all of creation, just those like you. Either you repent for your deviant ways and influence your people to return to the path of good, or the greater part of you will die. Seth turned his back on his son, leaving the room knowing that his words would not affect a man so immersed in his lusts. In his heart, the one remaining hope was that he could save his grandson Kenan and take him along. The sound of derisive laughter accompanied him as he left. Foolish old man, you threaten me with death, but you do not understand what it is to live. Do not forget to take my idiot son Kenan with you. A tremor passed through the ground. The people, who a moment earlier had been kneeling in front of their idols on the tranquil seashore, looked up in horror. Their deafening screams and shouts filled the air as they saw water towering high above them. The ocean had gathered itself into a soaring wave, rushing toward the shore on which the people had brought sacrifices to the host of heaven. The people began to run amok, trying to escape from the beach, which only a few minutes earlier had seemed quiet and idyllic. They tried to flee from certain death, even as they realized a slight distance from the waterline would not save them. The tsunami surge progressed rapidly, crossing the shoreline, washing over every crevice in its path, picking up whoever stood in its way, carrying them hundreds of feet and slamming them into the lofty buildings. The bodies of the children of Enosh were smashed by the heavy rocks, as the waves shattered stones like clods of dry dirt. Trees were uprooted along with the altars built beneath them, erasing the deviant path that the people had chosen to walk. The wave lifted everything, effortlessly overturning the earth on which, a few moments earlier, crooked and devious people had walked. For long minutes, the wave continued to surge, sweeping away everything in its path, laying waste to the corrupted universe. A third of the world was washed away, leaving tens of thousands of sodden corpses lying on the earth, with no one to bury them. The report of a natural disaster reached the door of Enosh's palace. Crowds pounded on the gates, demanding to hear why he was angry with his children and drowning them by the thousands. Enosh locked himself in his chambers, afraid to go out and face his people, feeling that they might harm him and blame him for the vast destruction. Then the great doors to the ivory palace opened, and a young man stood there to face the raucous crowd. His frail body, clad in simple white linen, surprised those standing at the gates. His compassionate eyes stared at the rioters, seeking to hold Enosh responsible for the disaster that had befallen the land. Gentleness and love radiated from his face, restraining the wave of people. They halted in their tracks, like a bloodthirsty warrior suddenly discovering an infant on the battlefield, given pause by its very helplessness. Tears welled up in the eyes of the young man standing before the people. "Where's Enosh?" Someone called out to the young man. "Enosh? That unfortunate man is hiding in his chambers, frightened by your rage." The young man smiled at the people. The mob began to surge forward to try and enter the palace and take revenge on the man whose actions had led to the death of 1/3 of the world's population. "But what good will it do you if you kill him?" asked the young man. "My father, Enosh, made the same mistake you made." The powerful voice of the frail young man stopped the rioters' advance. "My father thought that his ability to control demons and devils gave him superiority over other human beings, and made him a god. You too mistakenly thought that of him. The truth is that controlling demons and devils is a very simplistic science that any human being can learn. You turned away from the Lord and regarded this power as divine, but this is not true at all. Every human being was created with psychic powers by which to control these lesser beings." The young man smiled at the crowd standing in front of him. "Understand, if a person can control other humans who have free will, then surely a person can control demons who have no free will." "Who says you're right?" shouted a man from the crowd. The man laughed. "They do," he said, pointing behind him. A sound of fear and terror erupted from the large crowd standing in front of the youth, as tens of thousands of horrible demons and devils appeared from behind him, bowing to him. The people fell on their faces, genuflecting to the new god they had encountered. "Get up, you fools!" the youth commanded those who bowed down to him. "Are you so unthinking as to understand not one word of what I have said? I am no different from you. I am merely an ordinary person who learned these simple vanities almost by accident, as I learned the will of the Lord from the children of Adam. You must not bow or worship me or any other creature in the world. We must all worship only God, the creator of the universe. Will you teach us how to worship?" "I will learn and I will teach too," Kenan reassured them. For many years, Kenan taught his contemporaries wisdom and knowledge, ruling over the earth. Some human beings had begun to walk the path desired and outlined for them, while others persisted in their foolishness. Kenan strove to bring his contemporaries back to the path of truth and to undo the decrees he envisioned falling upon the human race. He warned his contemporaries that the seas would flood the land again as a result of their actions. Due to the ignorance of the generation, the oceans would once again arise, as they had erased 1/3 of creation. But Kenan's warnings of a global flood that would erase all humanity were considered dubious. Kenan's eldest son, Mahalalel, was born to him at the age of 70. Mahalalel begat Jared when he was 65 years old. Enoch was born to Jared at the age of 162 years. "Enough, father, I cannot go on like this." Enoch sat on the ground of his room, crying before his Father in heaven. "I try to teach your sons the right way. As long as I hid in my room, worshiping you alone, I was not susceptible to their spirit of arrogance. Since you commanded me to go out to the people and teach them your laws, I have felt overwhelmed by the sin of pride. I know that I am nothing, and I have no true understanding or intelligence, but whenever I speak to your people, they bow to me and look at me as if I were God. Their unsophisticated minds are unable to understand that my own merit is only by virtue of your grace. No longer can I live among them. I'm scared to death of the feelings of haughtiness that bubble up within me." Enoch's voice broke as he wept. I stopped appearing before them every day, instead meeting them once a week so that I could spend more time with you. But this only increased their dependence and admiration for me. Since the age of 65, I have been teaching your children your ways. For 244 years, I have been trying to bring your sons back to you. True, many of your sons walk the path of truth today, perhaps nearly all, but I feel I have no more strength to endure the honor people pay me. I cannot remain a simple man if they continue to treat me like this. There was a quiet knock at the door. Enoch wiped away his tears, and with great sorrow he went to open the door, which was infrequently disturbed. His son Methuselah stood in the doorway, his eyes watering, sorrow and grief covering his face. What happened? Enoch asked apprehensively. He died, cried Methuselah. Adam has departed from the world, the perfection of creation has returned his soul to the Creator. Enoch burst into tears, sadly embracing his eldest son, feeling the pain at the passing of the righteous man. A massive funeral was organized, as people from all over the world came to pay their last respects to the forebear of humanity. Enoch stood on a small hill in front of the people to mourn the handiwork of the Creator, the first man. Brethren, beloved children, our righteous patriarch has passed away. The handiwork of the Creator of the universe is gone. The sun shines less brightly as the provender of the world has been taken from us, at the age of 930. He sinned once in his life, and for this he sat fasting for 130 years. We are all the children of this most wonderful creation of God. He was supposed to live a full millennium, but in his love for us he gave up 70 years of his life to the Savior all mankind is waiting for. A man who will return our hearts, without exception, to our Father in heaven. When I studied with him, he once told me that the Lord showed him all his descendants, until the end of all generations. He revealed to him all that they would learn and innovate in the world, showed him how long each of them would live, and when each would depart from the world. Our patriarch told me that while God was showing him everything, he saw a beautiful baby in a crib. Who is this? He asked. The Lord answered, This is the Savior of your descendants, the Messianic King David, who will be born many years from now. However, he is destined to die in infancy. Adam told me that he started crying and begging for the Creator to take years from his own life and give them to this baby. The Creator willingly agreed to take 70 years from Adam and give them to the Messianic King in days to come. Enoch wiped tears from his face. This is our dear patriarch, who gave his life for us. Blessed be the true judge, may his memory be a blessing. The people took their patriarch's bier to the Machpelah cave in Hebron. The bier was swallowed up into the depths of the earth, so that fools would not come to worship the created in the place of the Creator. 56 years after the death of Adam, Enoch faced his own demise. Sequestered in his room, he emerged annually to see the people. One day a year, the crowd celebrated as their revered holy man revealed himself to them. Whatever shall I do? He whispered in fear, knowing that in the next hour he would have to fight the passions that threatened to overwhelm him, seeing the absolute adulation and awe that all the inhabitants of the world had for him. In a few days the trial will be over, Enoch heard a heavenly voice say. You will depart this world shortly. Until then, try to teach them as much as you can. Enoch smiled happily at the thought that the yoke of this trial would soon be lifted off his shoulders. Quickly he got to his feet, then went out to his people. In a few days I will leave you, he said to the crowd, his face glowing. Now I must teach you. For hours upon hours, tirelessly, Enoch laid out before the people laws and judgments which they had to obey. The crowd thronged before him, some sleeping, some listening, while time passed in the unceasing sermon. Late at night, a noise came from the sky. The frightened people looked up to behold a huge fiery horse descending from the sky. Enoch smiled happily, ran towards the steed, joyously waving farewell to the shocked people. Enoch jumped lightly onto the back of the mount, which began galloping. A great multitude ran after the revered man, refusing to leave him, refusing to part with him. The horse halted. Enoch begged the people to leave him alone and let him die, but the people refused. 100,000 people were running after the man who had led his generation for the last 300 years. 800,000 people were trying to catch the fiery horse. For a whole week, Enoch warned his loved ones that if they did not leave him, they would die too. On the seventh day, snow fell, making it difficult for those who trailed resolutely behind the mounted Enoch. In the evening, the horse rose above the ground and soared upwards towards the gray sky, leaving the people who saw the spectacle lifeless. A delegation, later sent out to search for the leader of the generation, found all these people buried under the freezing snow. Methuselah, son of Enoch, was crowned king over all human beings. A righteous and honest man, he was dedicated to teaching his contemporaries the way of God. Morality and decency were his watchwords. However, despite Methuselah's remonstrations, lusts of the flesh and lewdness overshadowed righteousness and chastity. Robbery and violence were incited by people greedy for ill-gotten gain. Idolatry, which was far less demanding, quickly overtook the worship of God. The people descend into the abyss of oblivion, towards all imaginable abominations and lusts. Methuselah's son, Lamech, also tried to teach the people, but his efforts were for naught. Hunger and famine came to the land in order to persuade human beings to correct their evil ways, but instead, the wicked used it as a pretext to plunder and loot the land. At the age of 181, he married Ashmua, daughter of his uncle Elishua, son of Enoch. A year later, their son was born. Lamech named the child Menahem, comforter. But grandfather Methuselah told Lamech he ought to be named Noah, rest, as he had been born circumcised. He knew, as Adam had taught him, that the birth of a circumcised child would signal the end of famine in the world. Do not call him Noah, even though this is his true name. Call him Menahem, so the sorcerers cannot harm him. Chapter 6. Noah. The day was drenched in sun. There was discernible joy on the faces of the people thronging the streets. Music and song filled the air, raising the spirits of the men and women on hedonistic outings in the heart of the town. It was a tumultuous scene, men and women strolling and intermingling licentiously and without shame. A shout arose from the edge of the market, drawing the attention of the bystanders to the source of the screams. An old widow, selling her wares, wept as a young man, son of one of the city councilors, leaned down from his horse to seize some of her produce without paying. The spectators burst out laughing at the scene. The brazen youth approached the howling old woman who was dressed in rags and slapped her across the face. "Mad woman, you're interrupting my fun," he rebuked her. "I penalize you 20 apples," he declared as he reached into her stall to collect the fine. Voices were heard from all sides. "He's right! I've been harassed by this madwoman too." Within a few minutes, the old woman was left desolate in the market, with no fruit and no stall, crying over her fate. "Apparently, this crone finds that her life has grown tedious," laughed a middle-aged man, revealing his rotten teeth. The middle-aged man approached the old woman, dragged her to the street corner, and beat her to death. The sound of hurried footfalls rang out as people rushed to the market square. Two men, one older and one younger, stood on a small stage, addressing the crowd. They were covered from head to toe in white, their heads bowed earthward, with white hoods obscuring their faces. Their pale hands peeked out from the edges of their long sleeves. Their charcoal black beards protruded below their hoods, contrasting with their snowy attire. The younger of the white-clad men shouted. How long will you persist in committing evil? How long will you continue to do beastly deeds and anger your Creator? Don't you know that God, creator of heaven and earth, will make you pay for your corrupt ways? Do you think that there is no justice and no judgment? Do you think there is no true judge? There are judges, that's true, a young woman cried out. They come to us so we can show them a good time. Wild laughter arose from the crowd at the young woman's response. The laughter subsided after a few moments. The white-clad man resumed as if he had never been interrupted. You must know that the creator of the world hates lewdness. To fix the world and raise it to a higher level, he created us, human beings. If we fulfill his word, he will reward us abundantly and bless us. Yet, you rebel against him and choose the path of perversion. The creator wants to give you the best, but you reject him. The best? What could be better than what we have? A man in the audience laughed. We have to plow and reap only once every 40 years. The land is bountiful with everything good. Even the act of plowing itself has become a trifle, since you, Menahem, invented the plow. The truth is that you are a genius. How did no one think of that before? Apparently, every genius is a little crazy, so now you're telling us to stop enjoying life. Thanks to you, we have plenty of fruits, vegetables, bread, and wine, almost without working. Our women give birth to healthy, whole, strong, and beautiful sons and daughters. Although we are not sure they are our children, he said with a leer. But what does it matter? We're all one big family. Who needs more than that? Voices were raised in agreement throughout the large crowd. God wants to give you much more than that. The second, older white-clad man explained. Material wealth and pleasures of this world are not the purpose. The Creator wants to shower you with good in the world to come, if you follow his will in this world. The world to come? Who said there is a next world? Have you been there? Has anyone come back from there? The audience teemed with questions and challenges. Certainly it exists, the younger speaker insisted. Menahem, stop trying to confuse us. A man at the end of the row shouted. It is only because you are unable to have children that you are talking like that, thinking up all kinds of nonsense. So what if you cannot father children? You can still live it up. The crowd burst out laughing again. I'm sure a lot of the girls here will agree to marry you and your grandfather, Methuselah. Stop being shy. They're good girls. God will bring upon you a deluge, and he will destroy the whole world, Menahem shouted before the laughing people. We'll deal with it. We have boats and ships to weather any flood, someone in the crowd chortled. Repent, and God will forgive you, Methuselah exclaimed in a pleading voice. You can forgive me yourself, a man called out from the crowd, but I have more pleasurable things to do. He walked away. Come on, giggled a young woman. We've had enough of this show for today. I'm sure there will be another performance tomorrow. The crowd dispersed, leaving Methuselah and Menahem alone in the bustling market square. The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And, behold, I will destroy them with the earth. This was the shocking prophecy Noah had received. Noah sat in his room, his teary eyes downcast. Speaking to his contemporaries for 180 years had made no impression at all. Not a single person had changed their deeds due to the rebuke he and his grandfather had offered. A feeling of utter failure filled his heart as he thought about the abuse he and his grandfather had experienced in their dealings with the people, who had seen them as a joke, an amusing circus act put on in front of them for free. The knowledge of the impending destruction of the earth, sooner or later, had discouraged Noah from marrying, from being fruitful and multiplying. Then God had corrected his misapprehension. You must marry a woman and have sons with her, he was commanded. As for the looming catastrophe, he was told, make you an ark of gopher wood, with room shall you make the ark, and place pitch upon it, inside and outside. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, the breadth of it, 50 cubits, and the height of it, 30 cubits. A skylight shall you make for the ark, and to a cubit shall you finish it upward. And the hatch of the ark shall you set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third decks shall you make it. Noah married Naamah, who was 82 years older than he, the daughter of the righteous Enoch, who had been taken up to heaven in a storm. She was a righteous woman who walked in her father's ways and was disgusted by the deeds of her generation. Noah began preparations for the of building the ark. After 20 years of marriage, the couple had 3 sons in a row: Japheth, Ham, and Shem. A group of people gathered around Noah, seeing him diligently tending the full forest of cedar trees he had planted. Noah tended to his grove meticulously, making sure that the cedars would grow straight and tall. "Noah, what are you doing? Is our life too tedious for you?" They laughed at him. Noah stopped his work, looking at the assembled people mocking him. "The Lord is destined to bring a deluge upon the earth, so I am building an ark which my family and I will enter when the floodwaters come," he said, then continued his work. "He's really lost his sanity, poor thing," sniggered one from the contemptuous crowd. "Noah, why not take some of our cedars? Why do you have to grow so many trees? Ask nicely and we will give you ready-made cedars." They roared with laughter, anticipating an entertaining response. "God commanded me to build an ark in order for you to see what I'm doing, to understand that my words are not uttered in vain. I am willing to invest all my energy to prove to you that what I'm saying is genuine. And God does not want the ark to be contaminated by impure hands," Noah said. "So when will this deluge take place?" one of them demanded. Noah looked at the questioner, trying to make up his mind as to whether he was serious or not. 80 years from now, 40 years ago I planted this forest by God's command, when I was 480 years old. Now I am 520 years old. 40 years ago, God told me that he would give you another 120 years to repent before the deluge. So, Noah concluded soberly, that means there are only 80 years left until the flood. 80 years? His interlocutor repeated, his face displaying fear. "Indeed," Noah said with the hope that his questioner might repent. The serious man concluded with a broad grin, "If so, my dear friends, even if this madman's words are worth something, we still have 8 full decades to enjoy ourselves." The peals of laughter bursting from the crowd made Noah's face fall. He felt the cynical laughter of his contemporaries cut through his very soul. When the cedars had grown magnificent and tall, Noah and his sons chopped them down. They sawed them, crafting gigantic wooden planks to build the ark their father had commanded them to build. It was difficult, heavy labor, which began 115 years after Noah had first planted the forest. People gathered around the construction site where the massive ark was being assembled. From all over the region, the curious came to see the 4 madmen, and to mock and deride them. They ridiculed the eccentrics who were diligently engaged in their craft. The 4 men continued their work without paying attention to the scorners. Finally, the ark was completed, a meticulously planned and artfully constructed vessel. There were 3 decks, each divided into rooms and compartments. The bottom deck was for the storage of food, fresh water, and refuse, which the weeks of being sealed in the ark would produce. The second deck, which was narrower, housed the animals. The top deck, tapering to a 1-cubit wide skylight at the top, contained the living quarters for Noah and his family. This was the product of 5 years of intensive construction, but it was not only the ark that Noah built during those years. He also married off his sons to the daughters of Eliakim, the son of Methuselah. However, their marriages would not be consummated until the deluge was over and they left the ark. On the 10th day of the month of Marheshvan, 1656 years after the creation of Adam, heavy grief descended on the world, as the long-lived Methuselah passed away at 969 years old. People gathered to accompany the oldest of men on his final journey. Although he had been mocked and ridiculed during his final years, many came to accompany the man who was a living monument to the Adam of yore, 7 generations earlier. Noah wiped the tears from his eyes, understanding that his grandfather had died so that he would not witness the punishment about to befall mankind. He understood that God, in his compassion, had taken his grandfather from the earth before the apocalypse. The divine command came to Noah: "Go and sit by the hatch of the ark, you and your household. I will send you all the living things upon the earth, so that they may enter the ark with you. They will be male and female, beasts and animals which are uncorrupted, in mated pairs." But how will I know which animals to admit into the ark? How will I know which are uncorrupted? Whichever animal comes and crouches before you are the ones you shall bring into the ark. Noah hurried to the hatch of the ark to greet the animals, on whose behalf he and his family had been laboring for 120 years. He could hear noise and commotion outside as the bystanders fled in terror from predators reaching the side of the ark, where people had gathered to watch the eccentric shipbuilding family. Thousands of spectators had been observing the giant pitch-covered ark. Now they scattered everywhere, seeing that all the beasts of the forest were on their way to the ark. "Noah, what is the meaning of this menagerie?" shouted a man from atop a tall tree toward Noah, sitting peacefully at the hatch of the ark. "As I told you, God is bringing a deluge upon the earth. In a week's time, it will begin. I will shelter the animals in the ark because God does not want to completely destroy his world, but to rebuild it in holiness and purity," Noah explained as he watched the animals coming and crouching before him. Noah nodded his head at a pair of prostrating pachyderms, and the elephants entered the ark. Entry was granted only to those animals which bowed and scraped before Noah. Those who refused were angrily removed by a ring of ferocious beasts which now circled the ark. Thousands of pairs of animals, birds, reptiles, and insects entered the ark in perfect order. They formed a long double line, the end of which could not even be seen from the hatch of the ark. "How will we fit them all?" Shem asked his father in bewilderment. "The ark may be enormous, but it does not have space to accommodate all these animals." Noah smiled. "My dear son, have I not taught you that space is an illusion? God fills all space, and we exist within him. He can do anything." "If so," Shem reasoned, "why build such a large barge? We could have made do with a dinghy." "You are correct, but the Lord commanded us to make a great ark, so that everyone would come to marvel at it and ask us why we build it. Now, we can tell them what is destined to happen, perhaps motivating them to repent." Noah's face fell. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Hours passed, then days. The zoological caravan continued to embark upon the ark. The human spectators around the massive shop, now numbered in the tens of thousands, wondering at the marvelous scene. An older man, the disbelief clear on his face, demanded, "Noah, in all seriousness, what is going on here?" "The animals are entering, and tomorrow my family and I will join them on the ark. We will seal the hatch behind us. As for you," Noah wiped away a tear. "What, do you think that you and your family will live while we all perish?" The older man laughed at Noah. "If the floodwaters come, you too will die, I promise you that." He seemed panicked by the thought of torrential rains drowning the earth, but still enthralled in the lusts and abominations he so enjoyed. He could not break his shackles. "We will take our hatchets and axes, and we will breach your vessel. If there is to be a deluge, then you and your family will drown too." He impotently shouted, gazing at the thousands upon thousands behind him. Noah looked at the crowd pityingly. Why will you not repent instead? If you express regret and return to God, then there will be no deluge. Then we may all live. Live! You call that living? You have your endless list of restrictions and prohibitions that we are supposed to abide by. What sort of life is that? He screamed powerlessly. Also, if we do as you say and there is no flood, how will we ever know if you were telling the truth? Perhaps it is all fantasy. Are we to live the rest of our lives according to your delusions? No, thank you. If there is a deluge, then you and your family will drown alongside us all. Dismayed, Noah replied, We shall see tomorrow. Chapter 7. The Deluge. A week has passed since the animals began to embark. God's words were being fulfilled. Of every clean beast you shall take to yourself 7 and 7, each with his mate. And of the beasts that are not clean, 2 and 2 each with his mate. Of the fowl also of the air, 7 and 7, male and female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Noah and his household stood with their backs to the ark. The ramp, which the last of the animal had just mounted, was now standing empty, as if it were waiting for its last passengers, the humans, to ascend it. The heavens turned gloomy, a darkness at midday. Lightning and thunder tore through the murky sky, and drizzle began to fall, creating a fine mist on the assembled horde surrounding the ark on all sides, wielding axes and hatchets. Is this your deluge, Noah? Exclaimed one of the men with a laugh, trying to raise his voice over the booms of thunder. You can still repent? Noah shouted to the crowd, half in despair. Noah, be careful, your hair's getting wet. Watch yourself, you might drown, laughed a young woman. The rain intensified. Noah felt he had to enter the ark with his household, but he was reluctant to abandon the huge crowds around the ark. He fervently wished that the precipitation would turn into rains of blessing, refusing to believe that God would truly annihilate everyone left outside. My husband, we must go in and seal the hatch, Naamah said to Noah, as she saw he was hesitant to enter, understanding his look and the struggle in his heart. This is the will of God, she whispered consolingly to her husband. Noah and his family entered the ark, pulling in the ramp as the rainwater rose unnaturally. Boiling hot springs began to erupt from the ground beneath the feet of the people shouting frantically. Noah and his family heard screams of desperation and death. They watched as tens of thousands of people ran to try and breach the ark, being stopped by the beasts of prey, which kept them from entering the rescue ship. His sons pulled in the ramp, sealing the hatch in front of everyone. They could hear the pain and pleading of the people who finally realized their end was nigh, calling out for mercy and repentance. The deluge lasted 40 days and 40 nights, a time that seemed to Noah and his family like an eternity. They could still hear screams and pleas as the ark was lifted by the tide of the tempest. The air was filled with the sound of rushing water, along with heartbreaking and jaw-rattling thunder and lightning. The ark was shaken by the roiling waves, its hull creaking as if it were about to shatter. The animals within voiced their terror, from howling canines to lowing cattle to birds squawking in fear of imminent death. Noah, Naamah, their sons and their daughters-in-law were tossed like meat in a cauldron, pitched from one end of the ark to the other, screaming and crying at the top of the lungs. Noah, bruised and battered, used the last of his strength to look to the heavens and supplicate his Creator. We beseech you, Lord, save now. We have no strength to withstand the threats which surround us. The breakers of death surged round about me, the menacing floods terrified me. The cords of the netherworld tightened, the snares of death lay in wait for me. Answer us, Lord, answer us, redeem us, turn to us, and show us favor, redeem us, and rescue us. Gradually, the water calmed down, and the ark began to float slowly over the subsiding waves. Right away, Noah and his family found their chores to be backbreaking and grueling. They had to feed the animals, birds, reptiles, and insects day and night, going to the trouble of feeding each in its proper time. Their eyes were swollen from the lack of sleep and awful stress, their arms heavy from the burden of distributing copious amounts of food. The stench was unbearable as they were sealed inside the ark with the dampness, the animals, their food, and their waste. One day, Noah slowly approached the lion, which was eagerly awaiting its food. Hours had passed since Noah's appointed time to feed the hungry lion and provide something that would satisfy its voracious appetite. Noah, with great apprehension, presented the starving predator a heap of hay and leaves, knowing that such a vegetarian repast would never satisfy the hunger of the carnivore. Even if it consented to eat, it would not be sated. The big cat looked angrily at Noah, rebuking him for presenting such objectionable victuals. It stuck out its massive paw, claws slashing at Noah's leg with great force, slicing his flesh to the bone. Noah screamed in pain, escaping in terror from the chamber of the frustrated beast. What am I to give this chameleon to eat? Japheth thought to himself. It doesn't eat anything. It will just starve to death. He was concerned at the sight of the skinny lizard. He peeled a juicy pomegranate, recoiling in revulsion at the little worm wriggling inside the fruit. In disgust, he shook the worm out of the pomegranate, dropping it on the floor. The chameleon darted over and happily snagged the worm with its tongue. Japheth smiled happily, understanding God's providence over all his creatures. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rains continued to fall. Afterwards, for 150 days, water covered the entire earth. There were no trees, no mountains, nothing aside from water. The ark floated above it all, a small leaf on an infinite sea, the last refuge for all of Earth's animals and birds, a rescue ship for the last remnant of humanity. Noah went to open the skylight at the top of the ark to see the world of infinite water. He anxiously chipped away at the pitch covering the window fasteners. Finally, he opened the skylight, allowing a refreshing breeze to blow into the miasma of the ark. Noah inhaled the fresh air gratefully. Suddenly, he recoiled in panic. A huge human eye peeked at him through the skylight. Please, give me something to eat, the Titan said in a weepy voice. Og? Noah called in astonishment. I'm hungry, the giant whispered pleadingly. Noah climbed down to the lowest deck of the ark to fill a box with fruits and vegetables, though he knew that such an amount of food would not suffice to satisfy the Titan. Og gulped the food down eagerly. Thank you. I'm still hungry, but at least that's something. How did you survive the boiling water? Noah asked in amazement. Og smiled happily. I just clung to your ark. The water around it remained cool. Apparently God did not want the pitch on the ark to melt. Noah looked at the Titan who had escaped the deluge, realizing that he was now responsible for the giant as well. I'll go get you something more to eat, Noah said thoughtfully, once again descending to the bowls of the massive ship. Ham drifted through the ark annoyed. He watched his wife, who was feeding the animals under her care with dedication. His lusts overpowered him. Come here, he demanded of his wife, ordering her around as she looked at him in alarm and fear. Ham wildly grabbed her hand, dragging her to their private stateroom. A wind passed over the great waters as they began to subside. The ark rumbled, as the people and animals inside it felt the keel strike something solid and come to rest atop it. Their seemingly endless cruise had come to a halt. Noah opened the skylight, and the sunlight dazzled the eyes of his family. They could breathe freely, fresh air rushing into their nostrils. Noah stuck his head out of the ark, savoring the refreshing breeze. Hurry, God commanded him. Send out the raven, so you may know if the waters have retreated from the face of the earth. Why the raven? Ham asked his father. Noah looked at his wayward son angrily. The raven is the cleverest of all birds, so I will send it out. Shem returned eagerly with the raven, which peered contemptuously at Noah and his son who carried it. Noah reached out, picked up the raven, and placed it in the open air above his head. However, the raven merely circled the ship, refusing to go anywhere, squawking in protest over the skylight. Ham audaciously declared, "I think you had best retrieve it." Noah responded derisively, "You are birds of a feather, aren't you? You, the raven, and the dog, all three of you have violated the prohibition upon us all in the ark. That's why you have such sympathy for him." Ham looked down angrily, knowing that his disgrace was obvious to all, now that his wife's pregnancy was visible. "So what if we did that? That's not a reason to let the raven die. You want to exterminate its species from the face of the earth because of this act it committed? You just hate it," he responded aggressively to his father. "And what good will it do you?" Noah replied with disgust. "It is not a clean bird. You can neither eat nor sacrifice it." Ham grinned in his father's face. "In your opinion, did the Creator make something unnecessary in his world?" Ham's grin widened as he saw his father's discombobulation. "And if you do not loathe and want to destroy it, why did you not send one of the clean birds, of which there are 7 of every species?" A peal of laughter erupted from his throat. "Perhaps you are attracted to the ravenous?" Noah raised his hand and slapped it across his son's face. "Only a twisted mind like yours could come up with such things. You show your true face. I am ashamed to call you my son." He denounced him angrily. He thought sadly, "The root of evil is in this son." Ham turned away from his father, contemning him for his actions. The days went by. Noah sent the dove to see if the waters had dried up. The dove returned with nothing. Waiting another week, Noah sent the dove again, and by evening it had returned with an olive branch in its mouth. Noah rejoiced at the sight of the olive branch. This was incontrovertible proof that the trees had begun to grow again. His heart skipped a beat as he realized what this meant. They could leave the ark and find food. It was as if it said, "May my food be as bitter as an olive, but from God's hands, rather than sweet as honey, but from human hands." Another week passed, and Noah sent the dove out again. This time, it did not return. Now it was the first day of the month of Marheshvan, and Noah pulled back the ark's cover. He could see that the world was all mud and mire. Witnessing the boggy scene, Noah realized that he could not leave the ark without an explicit directive. 27 more days passed, and the long-awaited command was issued. "Go forth from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring forth with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, both fowl and cattle, and every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth, that they may swarm in the earth and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth." Noah, his family, and all the animals came out of the ark. They found themselves in the Ararat Mountains, northeast of where the family had begun their compulsory cruise. The land was desolate, the heavy rains having consumed everything. Trees, plants, flowers, and herbs had been completely obliterated by the flood that swept over the land. The precipitation had penetrated into the topsoil, turning up the dirt and ripping out all the vegetation. Corpses littered the landscape as the family began their long journey back to their previous homestead. In the absence of predators, all the bodies had been left to putrefy, causing noisome stench and decay. 4 couples and the newborn Cush made their way, witnessing the destruction and devastation that covered the face of the earth. Tears flowed from the eyes of the adults as they encountered the omnipresent death filling the land. Noah cried as he went, howling and mourning his generation, wiped off the face of the earth, dismayed by the destruction and death. Within him arose a feeling against the Creator who had destroyed his entire world wrathfully. However, in his heart he sensed a voice. "Foolish shepherd, you ought to have cried like this when I informed you that I would destroy my world. What's the point of crying now? You are not the person mankind has been waiting for." Noah and his family spent many days walking to where the first man was created, in order to reach the place where he had built his altar and brought his sacrifice. Birds, animals, and beasts accompanied the clan, sustaining themselves on any bit or morsel of something worth eating, barely surviving until they came to their destination. Noah and his sons carried loads on their backs, as did those animals who could bear burdens. They had sacks full of seeds and countless shoots, species of trees, plants, vegetables, and fruits that had been carefully kept out of reach from animals. The journey was long, the burden was heavy, the road seemed endless. Ugh, I'm tired. Where are we going? What's wrong with this spot? What does that place in the middle of nowhere have that this place in the middle of nowhere doesn't? Ham sat down where he found himself, setting Cush down on the ground. I'm staying here. What does it matter where we bring the sacrifices? For that matter, what do offerings have to do with me? Who needs them at all? Noah looked at his son in disgust, loathing Ham in his heart. We are going on, with or without you. Noah continued on his way with Naamah, Shem, and Japheth following him with their wives. Ham's wife hurriedly picked up Cush, running to catch up to Noah. Having no choice, Ham picked himself up off the ground and trailed behind the rest of his family, glad that, at least, he no longer had to carry his son in his arms. As the mountain towered before Noah, a smile of joy arose on his face. He reverently approached the site of the altar built by Adam 1,657 years earlier. His hands longingly caressed the stones, which had been battered by the passage of centuries, and all of the privations of the intervening years. Quickly, he restored the ancient altar, putting the stones back together. I must offer a sacrifice to thank God for the good he has bestowed upon me and my family, he thought jubilantly as he built the altar. Still, the chronic pain in his lame leg obscured his joy. I cannot offer the sacrifice because I have a blemish. My sons Shem and Japheth will present the offering instead. Noah looked happily at the pillar of smoke rising upwards, feeling a scent penetrating his nose, blinding the rest of his senses. His eyes closed languidly, and a voice was sensed in his heart. I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living, as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Noah was relieved to hear God's promise not to bring another deluge. Then he heard God's blessing. Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, and upon all wherewith the ground teems, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be for food for you. As the green herb have I given you all. Only flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man, even at the hand of every man's brother, will I require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, even within a man, his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you, be fruitful and multiply, swarm in the earth and multiply therein. He shook at the very thought of the severe punishment brought upon the world due to lusts of the flesh, and the retribution which had destroyed the earth. This is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you, for perpetual generations. I have set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow is seen in the cloud, that I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never more become a deluge to destroy all flesh. Light drops began to descend while the sun was still shining. Noah tried to understand what the rainbow was, what the Creator meant. Then it appeared in the sky. Bands of every spectacular color climbed from the ground to the highest heaven. Noah was enchanted by the sight. This, then, was the rainbow. It warmed his heart to consider the wonderful phenomenon of the sun's rays being refracted in water droplets. God explained, "If your children follow the path of good, then it will rain only at night, when precipitation neither disturbs nor troubles people. But if your children diverge from the path, then it will rain during the daytime as well. Then you will know that it is because of your sins that the rain falls when it is inconvenient. It is only my covenant with you that keeps me from destroying the world again." Noah was lying in his tent, undressed and stark naked, inebriated thanks to the strong wine he had prepared, now that the vineyard he had planted had finally produced its vintage. His intoxicated snores sawed through the silence of the camp set up by his clan. Canaan, Ham's youngest son, approached his grandfather's tent, peeked out of the opening of the tent, and saw his inebriated patriarch. "Father, come and see Grandpa. He's completely drunk." Canaan laughed as he told his father about what he saw. Ham approached the tent silently, hearing his aged father snoring, watching the naked old man. Behind him, Canaan snuck in, longing to see what his father planned to do. Why is he naked? The thought popped into Ham's mind. He must have been with Mother. It was the obvious conclusion. This fool has not learned his history. Anger filled Ham's heart. When Adam had 2 children, one killed the other for the inheritance. We are 3 brothers, and this drunk wants to have more children? Ham entered the tent, pulled out his knife, and castrated his father. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw in the back of the tent the garment his father had inherited from Methuselah, his grandfather. It had been passed down from Enoch, who had received it from Adam himself. It was the leather garment God had prepared for him when he expelled him from heaven. Ham went to the back of the tent, quietly stole the coveted garment, and slowly left the tent to hide his loot. "Did you see the drunken old man?" Ham asked his brother jokingly. "He's lying in his tent, completely naked. That ancient fool drank so much wine, it was coming out of his ears." The old man thought he would bring more children into the world? As if it weren't enough for the 3 of us to share the inheritance of the world. He saw the uncomfortable look his brothers exchanged. "Don't worry, I have taken care of him. He will never again be fruitful and multiply." Japheth and Shem considered their brother in shock, speechless. Finally, Shem screamed at him, "You wicked bastard!" with a tear glistening in the corner of his eye. "Come on," he said in a whisper to Jephthah. "We will go and conceal the dishonor of our righteous father." Shem and Japheth entered their father's tent, with their eyes closed, covering their father with a robe. Tears flowed from their tightly closed eyelids as they felt their father's pain. A few hours passed, and Noah finally awoke in intense pain from his genitals. He saw his robe, soiled with blood. A vague memory flooded his mind as he recalled the agony he had undergone while intoxicated, the recollection of Ham's face leaning over him. Ham had been holding his knife, which was dripping blood. Noah would never forget the demonic leers of his son and his grandson Canaan. They were etched in his mind as he had struggled to awake in excruciating pain, rolling around in his intoxication. Then he had lost consciousness because of the pain or the wine. Now the fog lifted, replaced by the consciousness of what his son and grandson had done to him. "Cursed be Canaan," Noah said in anguish, recognizing that his grandson had been the initiator of the catastrophe which had befallen him. Realizing that he could not curse Ham, someone who had been blessed by the very mouth of God along with his brothers, he directed his imprecation to Ham's son. Noah condemned Canaan to slavery. "A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." He also felt gratitude to his other 2 sons, who had concealed his dishonor. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be their servant. God enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be their servant." As the years passed, the sons of Noah multiplied, as Shem and Japheth continued in the way of their father. Ham and his sons, on the other hand, persevered their infuriating wickedness. Chapter 8. Nimrod. The flowering field was filled with the scent of spring flowers as the sun caressed the colorful meadow. Butterflies, in a variety of spectacular shades, danced playfully, sucking the juicy nectar pleasurably. A little doe walked among the blooming vegetation, frolicking carefree among the fresh flora. Its eyes encountered the strange sight of a human figure standing in the heart of the field, communing with nature. A primal urge commanded it to flee from the person who might endanger it, but a feeling of kindness and tenderness emanating from him compelled it to approach the putative foe. Its legs led it reluctantly toward this person, who seemed to radiate endless love and compassion. It bent its head to bow down before the man dressed in resplendent attire, radiating equanimity and tranquility. Its nose rubbed against the man, enjoying the scent that the garment exuded. Then strong hands gripped its fragile body as if in a vice. Its legs tried to escape the sweetness that had become a death trap. The twinkle of a ray of sunshine reflected on the tip of the knife's blade as it suddenly came into view. The doe's eyes opened wide with the horror of its impending death. A cruel smile etched itself in the doe's heart as it felt the knife slicing through its outstretched neck. Nimrod, son of Cush, son of Ham, arose, his face beaming with triumph at the fresh trophy. He wiped away some of the blood on his dripping hem, then cleaned his hand by running it through the luxuriant vegetation. He left the carcass behind him, the torn body left for the beasts of the field, after sating his hunger with raw flesh. The tall and swarthy Nimrod began to make his way toward his father's house, anger flooding his heart, knowing that his family was subservient to the family of Japheth, due to the curse of grandfather Noah. A slight smile tugged at the corner of his lip at the playful thought that came to his heart. Just as I hunt the beasts of the field effortlessly, and all the animals surrender before me, so be it with my family members, and all the more so with our enemies, the Japhethites. His scheme was beginning to take shape, seeming more realistic and feasible as there was much to think about. His fleet feet carried his sturdy body in a brisk run toward the hiding place where he had left his everyday clothing. He neatly put on his tattered robe as he took the trouble to hide Adam's garment from any observer's eye by putting on a mundane outfit. Don't you think it's high time we abandon this course of perverse weakness? Nimrod turned to his father Cush and his uncles Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Mizraim looked at his nephew sadly. And what would you have us do? Noah, our grandfather, cursed us to become the slaves of Shem and Japheth. Unfortunately, this curse is the command of God. We cannot do anything about it. Nimrod surveyed with his penetrating eyes the four old men sitting in front of him. A feeling of contempt and disgust filled his heart, seeing the people accepting the curse as a destiny that could never be changed. Unfortunately, this curse is the command of God. We cannot do anything about it. He mockingly mimicked his uncle's broken tone. Who said there is nothing to be done about it? Who is Noah that you submit to a few words, he said. Who is this God whom you bow and enslave yourselves to? His loud voice struck the elders in astonishment. I am telling you that I do not intend to live as a slave, and I inform you emphatically that soon I intend to go to war against the sons of Japheth, and then we will see who will be slaves. But dear Nimrod, how will you fight them? Asked his uncle Put, fearing for the lives of his enthusiastic nephew and the rest of the family. They outnumber and overpower us. Moreover, they are carrying out the command of the king of the world. Nimrod rushed to his feet, opened up his cloak, and tore off the old robe which shrouded his body, revealing Adam's garment beneath it. From now on, I am king of the world, he declared audaciously, looking at his three uncles, who fell on their faces in terror. The younger generation of our family is with me already. Will you join us or not? He skewered his uncles with his gaze, making clear that refusing to join him was not an option. The old men nodded in fright, accepting the young man as their new master. Nimrod turned to his shocked father. Henceforth, I am the ruler. You will see today who is the true king of the world. Nimrod left the room, leaving the old men behind. A number of swarthy and sober young men waited for Nimrod outside the door of the room, looking reverently at their cousin, who proceeded to announce the beginning of the carefully planned revolt. There is nothing to wait for. The revolution begins now, he said with characteristic determination. The young people looked at each other jubilantly, ready to carry out the plot they had been brewing in recent weeks. Their hands longingly caressed the blades secreted under their clothes. They started walking, innocently as it were, toward their hated masters' houses, gesturing to the young men working in the fields and homes that the uprising was at hand. A few minutes after Nimrod left the elders, screams and shouts began to fill the camp, women and children scattering in every direction, their clothes stained with the blood of their husbands and parents, slaughtered in their homes. An old man who broke out of his house in an attempt to escape the abattoir was easily hunted down by Nimrod, who happily directed the scene. The loud echo of his laughter cut the captured women to the quick. They knew that they would soon be crushed beneath Nimrod and his men. A few hours later, the smoke of the roasted meat began to fill the celebrating camp. Nimrod and his allies from his family relished the quick victory and their release from their bondage to the Japhetites. Peals of laughter rang out from the victors, intoxicated by wine and the exhilaration of freedom, the sweetness of vengeance against their oppressors rejuvenating their hearts. Weeping and keening were heard from the rooms where the women and children mourned their husbands and fathers. The new army of Nimrod numbered 540 warriors, most of them Hamites, along with some of his friends and companions from among the Semites and Japhetites. The campaign of conquest began as Nimrod and his soldiers, determined to impose his rule on all human beings, started to move from city to city and from region to region as they accepted those who were willing to surrender to them and mercilessly slaughtered their opponents. In every city and town, a ruler was stationed over the inhabitants. The people feared for the lives of their children who might be taken to serve in the army of the new autocrat, knowing that if they did not fulfill his will, their conscripted sons would pay for it with their lives. Decade would follow decade of unchallenged rule over all humanity. A reign that trampled the lives of the inhabitants under the heel of new power, a rule compelled and purported to replace the sovereignty of the Creator over all human beings. Laws invented anew by Nimrod and his advisors would be imposed on his disenfranchised subjects. With draconian and arbitrary legislation, these leaders would undermine any idea of justice and truth. By the time Nimrod was done, a century of cruel rule would destroy every spark of desire to challenge the dictatorial system of government. A great call rang throughout the civilized world, heralding a change in the character of authority and leadership. People gathered from all over the world for the great ceremony, the coronation of the new king of the world. Nimrod stood on a raised platform, clad in the resplendent attire of Adam. At his feet stood his courtiers and bodyguards dressed in the finest robes, embroidered with gold and precious stones. A hush fell over the crowd. A tremor passed through every heart which knew the fickle spirit of the one who ruled over the whole earth. Nimrod looked down from his place at the little people who gazed at him in terror, a slight smile passing over his lips, knowing that he had reached a sublime status which could be surpassed by no man. His sturdy hands rested on his waist, expressing his determination. His gaze scanned and penetrated into the eyes of his subjects, trying to escape his glare. "People," he said in a condescending and contemptuous voice towards the small and frightened creatures. "Today is a day of good tidings, a day when I, Nimrod, become king of the world. There is no other king but me, neither in earth nor in heaven. The resounding voice shocked the people, who were trying to figure out where he was heading. From now on you must know that there is no one else but me. I am the monarch. I am the high king. And it is me, only me, whom you must worship. Offer your sacrifices to my name. Tender your prayers to me. From now on, I and only I am the king of heaven and earth. His hands were raised high. Nimrod is the king. The sound of stormy applause was heard from Nimrod's courtiers and bodyguards shouting, Nimrod is the king! Long live the king! The stern glances directed at those standing in front of them made it clear that it was advisable, indeed required, for the crowd to join in celebrating the coronation. The sound began to swell, sweeping up all those who lived their lives unwittingly, merely hoping to survive until the morrow. From among the ministers strode a young man, his bold and clever face shining with joy and jubilation at the sublime ceremony. His pale skin and bright eyes indicated that he was not a Hamite. His powerful body and confident demeanor indicated that he was a warrior who recognized his high status. Terah, son of Nahor, a close friend and confidant of Nimrod, approached his master, his hands carrying a large gold crown inlaid with precious gems, glistening in the bright, warm light. Images of the stars and constellations were engraved on the crown, with Nimrod's own face positioned above them. Terah approached his master, placed the crown on his head in reverence, and bowed before the man who had made him his minister and lord commander of his army. The crowd bowed their faces to the ground as they witnessed the ceremony, wallowing in the dirt, shaking and sweating before their monarch. The sound of trumpets and the beating of drums arose from all sides, pulling the people to their feet, dancing and gyrating in the presence of their new god. Sacrifices were slaughtered and immolated in front of Nimrod, who stood proudly on his stage, looking with contemptuous joy at the creatures who worshipped him. Chapter 9. Terah. Congratulations! Congratulations, my dear friend, said Maradan, son of Nimrod, to Terah. Another little boy for Terah, our friend. You are more than a little naughty. He winked at Terah. Already 70 years old, you have a toddler Nohor, baby Haran, and now a newborn. You are very active for your age. I am overjoyed for you and for your fecund wife Amathlai, who has borne you 3 sons in 3 years. Maradan embraced Terah, as his eyes surveyed Terah's wife, greedily. Maradan's name was a source of fear for all the inhabitants of the earth. The knowledge that the king's son was wont to do whatever he pleased with arrogance and pridefulness made all people approach him with trepidation, and if they could, they would do everything to avoid the capricious and rotten prince. Any depraved or abominable act seemed to him amusing or exciting. His body shook with delight when he saw how people kept their distance and evaded him, knowing that whatever he felt like doing would be allowed. Terah, feeling Maradan's gaze upon his wife, Amathlai, daughter of Karnebo, wriggled out of the embrace with the distasteful man who still clasped his shoulder. Come, my dear friend, the courtiers and mages are waiting for us to join them at the banquet. Your dear father, in his great generosity, sent us a royal feast straight from his table. All the ministers, wise men, and mages stood up in honor of Terah and Maradan, wishing good luck and congratulations through mouths full of food and drink. Terah, what do you call your infant? One of the participants shouted. Abram, Terah said joyfully. Abram, for Nimrod, who is like my father, Av, has lifted and raised me high. Ram, he explained. Long live Abram. The blessing rang out from people eagerly raising the glasses of fine wine, sipping the splendid vintage to satiety. Then they extended the empty glasses towards the servants to refill their goblets. The feast lasted for many hours. The sounds of singing and chanting echoed from the house, flooded with brilliant light and joy over the newborn. Many hours later, the door of the house opened, the moon and the stars in the sky lighting the way for the people leaving Terah's stately home. Heartfelt greetings and words of farewell accompanied the cheerful group that staggered towards their homes, which were not far from Terah's in their thriving city, Haran. The sound of mirth and conviviality was suddenly interrupted by a strange humming sound heard above their heads. The partygoers raised their heads towards the heavens, looking in amazement at the strange sight. An enormous shooting star cut across the sky from east to west at incredible speed, swallowing 4 stars from the 4 directions of the compass. The crowd's breath was taken away by the puzzling sight, their eyes looking at the scene disbelievingly, hoping it was all a drunken delusion. Their gaze downcast, they wended their way home, each one hoping that when the wine wore off, his companions would tell him it was only his imagination that had manufactured such a bizarre phenomenon. "Good morning," whispered one of the ministers to another as they met the next afternoon at the king's palace. His companion shook his head gingerly. "What good and what morning? My head is exploding after last night's feast. I'm afraid I drank too much yesterday. I couldn't sleep all night, even though I was completely exhausted." "Why? What happened to you?" the first minister asked, his puffy eyes betraying that he too had not slept at all the previous night. "I don't know, but when we left Tara's house, I thought I saw a strange scene. I'm sure it was just an alcoholic delusion, but still, all through the night I kept replaying it, and I could not sleep for a moment." "What did you see?" His companion shifted uncomfortably as he brought the memory to the forefront of his mind. "I saw a huge star rise from the east and swallow 4 stars from 4 directions. I know I did not really see it." The man mused as the first man blanched. "Why are you so pale?" "If that's true, it was not a drunken mirage," the man whispered in horror. "I saw it too." The ministers fell silent, pondering their next move. "Let's go ask everyone else who was at Tara's party. Maybe they saw it too." 10 of Nimrod's ministers and sages knocked on his door, waiting for their master's approval to appear before him. The heavy door rumbled open, and the ministers entered the king's palace. The splendor and opulence of the room did not move them as always, their fearful hearts insensitive to the wealth radiating from the very walls of the mansion. Nimrod, dressed in his wondrous raiment and with a crown on his head, greeted his loyal men with a smile. A slight glance at their sagging faces made it clear to him that something was going on. "What happened? Why do you look like that?" he asked grimly, feeling that the displeasure of his men was bringing his mood down. His servants were silent, quailing at the king's frown. "Confound it! Are any of you willing to open your mouths and tell me what's going on?" Nimrod screamed at his men, who usually chattered nonstop, but now were as hushed as the cliffs on the coast. One of the ministers decided that he would be the one to convey the terrible message to his master. "Your Majesty, last night we were all at Terah's house. He had another son, and he invited us all to celebrate the birth of his third-born." "Yes, so what happened?" "He had a son." "Well?" "Forgive me, Your Majesty," the minister stammered. "When we left the house of Terah in the middle of the night, we saw a frightening spectacle. A huge star rising from the east crossed the sky at great speed and swallowed 4 stars from 4 directions." The minister was silent, looking in fright at the darkening face of his king. "Yes," Nimrod whispered, and his voice trembled. "We remember that in the past your Majesty told us that one day a child would be born who would endanger your Majesty's kingship, who would try to conquer the world for himself." "We all think," the minister said, indicating his colleagues, "that your Majesty's prophecy is true, and that this child born to Terah is the child who imperils the kingdom." The minister looked at his king, choosing his words carefully. "We think that your Majesty should take Terah's son and kill him. The sooner the better. We know that Terah is a close friend to the king, and that this will make it difficult for the king, but for the king's sake, Your Majesty must do so. Terah is a faithful minister and servant of the king. He will not shirk his duty if your Majesty explains the danger inherent in his thirdborn. Nimrod nodded, knowing that it would not be easy to convince Terah to kill his newborn son. He pondered the gifts and prestige he would have to give Terah so that the Lord Commander could reconcile his mind to such an awful duty. Summon Terah, but tell him not a word of what we have discussed. Nimrod paced back and forth in his large room. More than an hour had passed since he sent for his beloved servant, Terah. His mind worked feverishly, trying to resolve what things he would say to his favorite among all of his subjects. The door opened slightly, and Terah, dressed in his uniform, entered before his beloved king, prostrating himself in submission to his best friend, with a loving smile on his face. "Hello, my liege and king," he said happily. "I am glad my dear lord has called his servant to come and see the gleam of his divine face." "Arise, my dear friend," Nimrod demanded. "There is something that oppresses my heart, and I know that it is you alone whom I may consult to settle this distressing matter." Terah got up quickly, approached his king, and kissed his hand humbly. "Tell me what weighs on your Majesty's heart, my lord." "Do you remember what I told you? How I saw that one day there would be a man who would endanger my kingdom?" The king said casually, as he directed the Lord Commander of his army to sit. Terah nodded in silence, looking at his king. "I know who this man is. My advisors and sorcerers witnessed an ominous scene yesterday which removed any doubt as to who the person is," Nimrod continued, a bit more pensively. Terah's face shone with joy. "If so, my lord, what is the problem? Kill the man and eliminate this threat to the monarchy. Tell me who he is, and I will do it happily." Nimrod tut-tutted. "It's not that simple, because this person is the son of one of my dearest subjects," the king said dejectedly. Terah looked at his master. "I understand, my lord, the difficulty, but we have no choice. We cannot leave the threat to your Majesty's kingship. As hard as it is, it must be done." Nimrod lowered his eyes, hoping that the feelings his boon companion was describing wouldn't change once Terah learned who the putative threat was. "You do not understand, my beloved friend, how difficult it is for me," Nimrod said as he considered Terah's face. "The man who is destined to decimate my kingdom is your newborn son. Yesterday, you celebrated his birth with your colleagues, but he is the person of whom I speak." A tear rolled from the corner of Nimrod's eye as he saw the falling face of his best friend. This is nonsense," fumed Terah, rising to his feet in fury. "The courtiers and mages are probably jealous of the love that we share. That is why they are trying to make you hurt my son, in order to bring us into conflict." Nimrod shook his head in regret over the futility of the argument. "I thought so too at first, but unfortunately, after researching and examining it, I realized this is not case. To my dismay, my loyal comrade, your son is the man foretold, and there is not one shadow of a doubt about it." "But my lord," Terah tried to beg for his son's life. "Your Majesty knows me. I will give him a good education, and even if he is augured to be such a man, when I teach him the way of truth, he will be a faithful and obedient subject to the king." "Enough, my comrade. You cannot change the decree. We'll wait for him to grow up, and if it seems like he's heading down the wrong path, I will volunteer to execute him myself," Terah attempted. "No, my comrade, I simply cannot take that risk. Give me your son, and I will fill your house with treasures of gold and gems." Nimrod tried to appease the father, who was mourning his son while he still lived. Terah lowered his face in sorrow. A few minutes passed while the two companions sat in silence, facing each other and pondering in pain what had to be done. "My king," said Terah as he regained his composure after hearing the awful decree, recalling other matters he needed to discuss with the monarch. There are more important things on the agenda right now that we need to discuss. Nimrod looked at his faithful companion, concluding from Terah's gaze that he had made his peace with the harsh sentence. Yes, my friend, Nimrod smiled happily, realizing that the Lord Commander of his army had come to terms with the difficult decree, and was trying to banish the thought of his son about to be slaughtered. Nimrod and Terah went on to discuss, for another 2 hours, the affairs of the kingdom and the wars being waged in remote places, the search for a new place to build the royal capital, and the construction of the tower that Nimrod so longed for. The two friends sat comfortably, drinking fine wine and eating to their heart's content the sumptuous feast presented to them. I have another matter to ask, Terah said as he cleaned his mustache from the drops of wine that adhered to it. Does my lord remember the wonderful horse he brought me about a year ago? Indeed, I remember. It is hard to forget such a horse, perfect in its appearance and ability, a worthy gift for my beloved friend. Nimrod reclined in his chair, relishing the memory of the noble steed, which he had bestowed upon his friend after Terah had emerged victorious from a long campaign, thanks to his brilliant strategizing. A few days ago, a man came to me with a business proposition. He asked me to sell him the horse, and in return, he would fill my house with barley. Terah said, as he gazed into Nimrod's wide-open eyes. I told him that I must address my king before I give him an answer, because I do nothing without consulting the patron of the world. Nimrod rose angrily to his feet. What is there to ask at all? To trade a noble and wonderful horse which I bestowed upon you as a gift, in exchange for barleycorns. This is how you want to lead my kingdom? Do you have doubts about such a simple thing? Even if you were to fill your house with silver and gold, it would still be an idiotic question. Are you that desperate for fodder? Terah also got to his feet and stood before his king, his eyes lowered. Am I that desperate for gold and gems? If you are angry about swapping a horse for silver and gold, what should I feel about trading my son for gold and gems? What will gold and gems give me? What does a man long for, if not that his sons will succeed him after he dies? Nimrod's face flushed with rage, his hand angrily pulling out the large sword resting on his thigh, with the intention of decapitating the man standing in front of him. Terah fell on his face in tears. I was just joking, Your Majesty. You know that I will do whatever you ask of me, but see that it is unbearable for me. I will bring my son to my king, and he will do with him as he pleases. Nimrod returned his sword to its sheath, understanding the heart of the Lord Commander of his army. I understand your grief, my friend, but you know I have no other choice. May I ask my lord that he give me 3 days for the sake of convincing my wife, that I may appease her with gifts and words of wisdom so that her spirit will not collapse when I bring my son to you? Of course, my beloved friend, Nimrod said as he went to hug his friend in reconciliation and affection. Terah knocked lightly on the door of his house before entering. Nahor, his 2-year-old son, ran towards the door, identifying his father by his knock, and 1-year-old Haran clapped his hands happily when he saw his father enter the house. Amithlai, his wife, contentedly laboring in the kitchen, deftly wiped her hands and walked over with a smile to greet her husband. Has something happened? She asked apprehensively as she saw Terah's tense face. We'll talk about that later, he whispered to his wife as he leaned over to lift Nahor by his arms. Father, you must see Abram. Little Abram smiled at me today. Nahor laughed happily, gesturing with his hand toward the small crib next to the main room. Terah walked over to the crib, looking compassionately at his infant son sentenced to die. Night had come. The big house was quiet, the roar of the wood in the fireplace merging with the sound of the little one's peaceful slumber. Terah and Amithlai were sitting opposite each other, at their heavy dining room table, wrought of fine wood and inlaid with gold. Amithlai gazed into her husband's miserable eyes, afraid to start the conversation. What happened? She asked in a whisper after long minutes of silence. Terah sighed from the bottom of his heart, pondering how to inform his wife of the terrible decree. "I was at Nimrod's today," he said, stalling for time. "He told me that there is a person who threatens to destroy his kingdom, and that person must be killed." Amethlai nodded her head, as she understood that her husband would soon need to go to war again, compelled to leave her and her children to deal with this potential rebellion. "I see," she whispered sadly, knowing that Tara had no desire to leave them. "No, you do not see," he said firmly, trying to stifle the scream which wanted to burst forth from his throat. Amethlai looked at her husband's agitated face in shock. She had never seen him on the verge of losing his temper. The tear that flowed from the corner of his eye splashed on the table, sending a vibration through his wife's body, who for a moment saw how her husband, her rock, was about to be shattered to pieces. A choked cry came from her throat as she realized that she had miscalculated. What Tira had to tell her was far more bitter than another military campaign he had to lead. "What do I not see?" she whispered as a torrent of tears washed over her face. "Abram," Tara whispered as he glanced at the crib from which the regular, rhythmic breathing of the newborn could be heard. "What happened to Abram?" said the mother apprehensively, hurrying to get up to see if she had failed to notice something amiss with her infant son. Tara grabbed his wife's hand, urging her to go back to her seat. "Nothing has happened to Abram yet," he whispered, still trying to keep things quiet. "What do you mean by yet?" Amethlai cried out, trying to stifle her voice and not to disturb her sleeping infant. "What I mean is..." His decisive voice sounded defeated. Amethlai felt that she was about to go mad from the silence that followed. She grabbed Tara's hand, and as he felt her fingernails digging into his palm absent-mindedly, he knew that he had to come clean. "Nimrod told me that the person who will ultimately destroy his kingdom is our son Abram," he said, suppressing his own emotions and feelings. "Nimrod told me that I must bring Abram to him, and he will execute him. And if not, he will come here and kill our whole family." A cry erupted out of Tara's mouth as he clutched his hand, the flesh cut to ribbons by his wife's fingernails. The blood from his hand and his tears mixed on the gleaming surface of their ornate table. Amethlai, in the meantime, slumped to the floor, racked by sobs. The young children were awoken from their peaceful slumber, their cries mingling with those of their broken parents. Loud knocks were heard on the heavy door. Sturdy fists broke their way into the house of the army chief. "Lord Commander, by order of our divine King Nimrod, you must come with me to him, together with your newborn son," said the officer in charge to his superior. "Our king has stated that the 3 days you requested are over, and you must now accompany me with your third-born son," the officer declared, unable to meet Tara's gaze. "Sir," he pleaded, "there is no choice. King Nimrod said that if you refuse to come, we must burn you, your household, and all that you have." The officer looked up at Tara. "Please, sir, I know that if you engage in combat, I have no chance of surviving. But His Majesty the King sent with me thousands of soldiers to carry out the mission. Against such a force, even you, Lord Commander, will not be able to win. I know that this matter is very difficult, but it's better to save your other 2 sons and your wife than lose everything." Tara nodded in silence, going to the corner of the room where his wife and 3 children were huddled. "There is no choice, my dear," said Tara, taking the child from her hands. The mother hugged her 2 remaining sons to her heart, a huge cry bursting from her chest. "I am sorry, sir," the officer whispered to Tara. "We have no other choice." Tara took the newborn in his hands, and the long line of soldiers escorted him to the palace. "Sir, I did what you asked me to do," Tara said to Nimrod with a downcast face. "Here is my youngest son, whom my wife gave birth to only 4 days ago." A tear flashed in the corner of his eye. "All I ask, my lord, is that I may leave the room while my lord will do what he will do." Nimrod looked proudly at the commander of his army, admiring the loyalty of his best friend. Certainly, my dear friend, he said in a voice demonstrating understanding of the father's distress. I did not think to ask you to be present at such a time. Terah handed the king the crying baby and hurried out of the room. His shoulders were hunched and his legs were in a hurry to escape the abattoir. He could hear the baby's wail after he slammed the door behind him. A few and the sound of crying stopped. His heart skipped a beat, thinking of the baby beyond the closed door. Nimrod sat down happily on his throne. On the ground lay the body of the enemy who had endangered his kingdom. With a broad smile, he turned to the guard standing by. Bring me water to wash my hands, he commanded with a smile. And provide me with a good meal and a jug of fine wine. I must celebrate today, and cast this carcass out of here. Chapter 10. The Cave. Darkness enveloped the cool stone walls, thin drops trailing their way along the rock crevices. Silence hovered over the gloomy reality that refused banish by the light of one measly candle. Perpetual quietude reigned, disturbed only from time to time when the noblewoman would enter through one of the walls, bringing food and drink to the little boy isolated from all the other people. This was a brief opportunity for the mother to speak to her youngest son, persuading him not to leave through the secret passage. In the cave there was no day, no night, but an ongoing monotonous reality of a feeble flicker in the heart of perpetual darkness. Mother, I want to come with you, the boy begs the woman. Why do I have to stay here alone? The mother wipes a tear from her face, hugging her little son tightly to her lap. My love, it's dangerous for you to go out. Bad people will want to hurt you. But mother, why would anyone want to hurt me? The boy cried, as on previous occasions. I haven't hurt anyone. I haven't harmed a soul. The mother tightened her hug, knowing that she would be unable to continue to hide, from the child, the reason for his gloomy, separate existence. Abram, I know it's hard for you to be left here alone, and I cannot stay with you here. But if I do not return home, people will start looking for me. And if they start looking, heaven forfend, they may discover you here. And then, so what if they find me? What will happen? The boy pressed his crying mother. He will kill you, she whispered in fear. Who is he? Why would he kill me? Her son was amazed. With an expression of devout awe, his mother replied, Why, God himself. Who is that? Abram wondered. Divine King Nimrod, and the statues and idols made in his image, his mother naively replied, believing that her 3-year-old son was ignorant to the existence of the Creator. Abram parted from his mother's fierce embrace, recognizing that there were many things he did not know about the world outside the walls of the cave. Abram sat down in front of his mother with a pensive look. What is God? He asked after a few minutes of silence. The mother smiled understandingly at her son's obliviousness. God is the one who created the whole world. The land and the sea, the trees, the stones, and all other creatures. God is the creator of everything. Is he like us, man? The child probed. Yes and no. He is like us, flesh and blood, but he is not an ordinary person. He is God. His mother answered in confusion. And how old is he? He asked with a smile. Amathai thought for a few moments. As far as I know, he is 173 years old, she replied. Is he the oldest thing in the world? The interrogation continued. No, certainly not, his mother laughed aloud. There are many people older than him. For example, there is grandfather Noah. He is already close to 900 years old. Abram burst into mischievous laughter. So, how did he create everything, if Noah was here before him? How could the Creator create before he, himself, existed? Amathai looked at her son in astonishment. How am I to know such things? That's what I was told when I was little, and I do not ask too many questions. she chided in a storm of emotions. Abram looked at his agitated mother. And what are these statues and idols that are also God? He asked simply. There are all kinds, said the mother in an attempt to put her son's mind at ease. Some are large and some are small. Some are made of stone, others of metal or wood. Some look like humans, and some look like animals. And what do you do with them? Bring sacrifices to them and pray to them, Amathai replied. Do you want me to bring you one next time I come? Abram ignored the suggestion. Who makes them? He asked with a smile. The mother shrugged proudly. Your father has one of the best workshops in the whole world. She told her son, intending to prove to him his high pedigree. People wait in line for years for your father, Terah, to prepare gods for them. Abram burst out laughing to the surprise of his alarmed mother. If my father creates gods, then maybe he is God. And maybe I am God too, because he created me. Amathai got up off the rock she had been sitting on, looking at her son as if he were crazy. Apparently, the solitude and isolation from the world has driven you mad, she lamented, distancing herself from the amiable child who had exposed himself as a heretic. Abram looked at his terrified mother, realizing that she could not understand what he was saying, but he tried to get his mother to stay put so she could answer some questions that still perturbed him. Sorry, mother, if I upset you. It's probably because I'm so alone and don't have any friends, he said with a shamed look, apologized to Amathai. But mother, I still do not understand why they would want to kill me. I'm just a little boy, 3 years old. What could I have possibly done wrong? Amathai looked at her unfortunate son in pain and settled down. Truly, I fear that the only reason King Nimrod seeks your life is the wickedness of narrow-minded and jealous people. You do not know, but your father Terah is the most beloved person to King Nimrod. Although your father is 100 years younger, King Nimrod drew your father close and gave him the highest position in his kingdom, Lord Commander of the Army. She sounded proud of her husband's status. On the day you were born, your father made a feast for his colleagues, the king's courtiers and magicians. The next day, they told the king that when they left our house, they saw a big star piercing the sky and swallowing 4 stars from 4 directions. These drunks were very frightened. They saw it as a sign that you were destined to dethrone the king. So, His Majesty ordered your father to bring you to him for execution. The mother was silent for a moment, letting her son digest all the new information. Abram grinned happily. But father refused. Yes and no, Amathai replied. He did not want to take you to our Lord, but the king declared that if he failed to do so, our entire family would be burned. Abram laughed. Some beloved friend, but how are you and I still alive then? One of the maidservants had a boy at the same time I did. That was the baby your father brought to King Nimrod and identified as his son, as if confiding a terrible secret to him. Were Nimrod to learn of it, she and her husband would be executed forthwith. Did he believe it? Abram was astonished. Amathai nodded affirmatively. He murdered that child and forgot the matter completely. He even showered your father with endless gifts to repay him for his loyalty and dedication to the kingdom. Abram chuckled aloud. Your God is a dumb and foolish one. Quiet, Amathai said with an expression of devout awe. He is our God. How can you say such things about him? Abram's continued chortling made his mother tremble. If your God can be deceived in this way, then he is nothing more than a fool. Where have all his divine powers gone, if he cannot accomplish such a simple thing? Stop talking like that, Amathai shrieked helplessly. What do I know about such matters? How am I to know how God's powers work? Abram stood up and hugged his mother. Mother, I don't want to upset or sadden you, but you know I have been sitting here in this cave for 3 years. I have no one to talk to. I have no one to ask questions of, I just sit here all day alone and think. Maybe my thoughts are strange, but I have to find out, especially when I know there is a God who wants to kill me. The mother looked at her little son compassionately, sorry for the madness that gripped her child due to the loneliness in which he was confined. Mother, may I ask another small question? Abram whispered. It's a little hard for me to understand why all the gods want to kill me. It must be that everyone decided to end my life, because if not, how can one want this and another not? If all the gods are omnipotent, what if one wants me to die and another does not? The mother shook off her troubled son's hug. I'm leaving now. I'll come back in a few days, she said anxiously. Perhaps. Abram crouched in the corner of the cave, leaning his back against the bare stone wall. Feeling the drops of water creeping down his lower back, resting his head on his knees with a sore heart. If she doesn't come anymore, what will happen to me? I must have talked too much. What should I do? Thoughts ran through the little boy's head as it became clear to him that he was being persecuted by the king of the whole earth. What did I do that cost me my life? How am I different from the other children my age who play in their homes with their siblings? How long will I have to hide here? Tears flowed from the boy's eyes, wetting his only garment. Minutes, hours, days slipped by as Abram was absorbed in thought. The food began to run out as more and more time passed. Hunger began to gnaw at him, a fear that his mother did not intend to return metastasized into the knowledge that he had been left alone in the world. Feelings of starvation and exhaustion filled the child's heart. He determined that he must get out of the cave. Whatever would be, would be. On shaking knees, he made his way to the spot his mother would come to visit him at. He was frightened by the idea of seeing the world beyond the cool stone walls. He put his hands on the heavy rock covering the opening, but he could not budge the stone. Thoughts of despair and sorrow rushed into the child's heart, but he chased them back to the dank corners they lurked in. No, there must be a creator of the world, the boy thought defiantly. Creator, if you exist, please help me open the door so I can worship you alone. Abram prayed to the unknown. His little hands pushed the rock again, and this time the stone door moved, as if surrendering to the child's prayer. Dazzling sunlight poured in, overwhelming the vision used to darkness broken only by feeble candlelight, blinding the eyes accustomed to a life of gloom. The illumination was stunning, filling the world with warmth and pleasantness. Abram shaded his eyes with his hands, feeling a burning in the dilated pupils shrinking in the face of the abundant light. Abram knelt, bowing to the sun that enlightened the whole of existence. Now I know who God is. The thought passed through his heart. This great light is the Creator. Abram stood at the entrance of the cave, his eyes growing accustomed to the immense light, his heart filling with prayer and praise towards the sun animating the world with its abundant rays. He picked fruit and vegetation from the surrounding field, restoring his hungry soul. His heart rejoiced at the revelation of the Creator to him in his abundant light. For several hours he watched the new Creator, observing his movement from far away. However, his mouth, filled with song and exultation, fell mute as he saw the light disappearing from his eyes in the foothills to the west. A new light appeared, smaller and softer, chasing the great light away. It gave off a pleasant white light, soothing, relaxing, and calming his eyes. This little light is surely the Creator. Even though it is smaller, the great light flees before it, so it must be the Creator, not the other. Little Abram prostrated himself before the moon that shone over the land, marveling at the army of gleaming warriors who accompanied and served it. Hours of prayer and thanksgiving to the Creator of the world illuminated the darkness of his life. However, a waxing light then rose in the east, obscuring the moonlight, eliminating the army of stars. Abram stood up and laughed at his foolishness. Maybe you two are great, but you are not God. He concluded confidently that the sun and moon simply play their roles in the sky. Like me, you too are puny servants of the Creator of all existence. For Abram, the days passed in solitude, and the silence was disturbed only by the wild animals and the forces of nature. Epistemologies and philosophies were propounded and dismissed in the fertile mind of the growing child. He spent long nights observing the lunar phases and the movements of the planets, stars, and constellations with a discerning and curious eye. The moon's orbit and the changes it underwent were engraved in the heart of the excited Abram. He memorized the changing positions of the celestial bodies, seeking to discover the logic of their revolutions and rotations. He would also sit silently in an attempt to feel the flow of life within his own growing body. He plunged into the depths of thought with the expectation of examining the mysteries of the soul pulsating within the mysteries of physicality. Hey guys, welcome back to a slight movement of the ear brought a smile to his serene face, concentrating on the possibility of controlling matter. Years of exploration of self and nature, of the hidden and the revealed, filled the dimensions of creeping time. It was now no trouble for Abram to push open the cave door confidently. He took one last look at the only home he had ever known, making the fateful decision that he could no longer remain hidden amid the desolation of the cave and the field. He was a child about 9 years old, living and growing up alone. A child whose only companion had been his own thought and reason. "Hello, Mother." The familiar voice from the depths of the past struck Amathai. The earthenware plate in her hand shattered on the ground, the remains of food scattering on the ornate marble tiled floor. Amathai looked up to find a boy who was growing up to be a handsome, broad-shouldered lad. A broad smile revealed white, healthy teeth and greeted the stricken face. A few seconds passed, the son and mother faced each other, unable to contend with the onslaught of opposing emotions. For long moments, she reviewed the distant past, the loving heart of a mother for her youngest child. Amathai knelt, reaching out to welcome the son she had been forced to abandon at her husband's behest. At last she could release the secret, hidden tears she had been so careful to conceal so as not to shatter her husband's noble facade. The mother wholeheartedly embraced her young son. For half a dozen years, the concern for his well-being had been replaced by grief and mourning, believing that the cave had become his crypt. Now she sobbed and gasped with relief. "Abram?" Night arrived. The warm sunlight disappeared. Moonlight took its place. Sounds of laughter and joy rose from the two adolescents returning with their father from the workday in the idol workshop. This urged Amathai to hide her youngest son in a room at the back of the spacious house. Amathai hugged her returning sons, washing the feet of her smiling husband, happy after another busy workday. Dinner was served to the three of them, who spoke loudly. "Mother, did you know? Today I finished the new god I made," Haran proudly told his mother. "He's so strong. He has 3 heads, one of a lion, one of an eagle, and one of a cat." "Oh, is that what it's supposed to be? The pussycat looks just like you," Nahor said mockingly to his brother. Haran rose angrily to hit his brother. "I was just joking," Nahor defended himself. Haran returned to his seat with a proud smile on his face. "So it seems today was very successful," Amathai said with a face that betrayed a bit of her sadness. Terah looked at his wife, realizing that something had happened. A brief meeting of glances made it clear to Terah that it would be worthwhile to postpone conversation to a later time. When the meal was over, the boys quickly went to their bedroom to sleep, after a long day of swinging hammers and chisels. Soon, the rhythmic sound of breathing filled the space, and their parents could talk freely. "My dear, what happened?" Terah interrogated his wife as she placed a steaming mug in front of him. "You've seemed upset and uneasy all evening. Does something bother you? Is it one of the manservants or maidservants?" Amathai looked down, trying to gauge what her husband's reaction would be to their little boy's return. There was concern for her son's life if Terah were to discover him, but she could not hide Abram's return from his father. Still, the silence stretched out as Tara considered how his wife avoided complaining about servants who did not do their jobs faithfully. She's too compassionate, the thought arose in Tara's heart. She treats manservants and maidservants as if they are ordinary human beings. Every time I hit one of them, tears well up in her eyes as if I had beaten her. But what can I do? They are slaves, and such animals must not be allowed to grow prideful. Tara waited, the conviction that one of the slaves would soon be dealt a harsh sentence growing in his heart. His sturdy hands played with his staff lying on the table, as if to ready it for its imminent task. Amathly raised her glance a bit. She whispered as if revealing a terrible secret. He has returned. Tara looked at his wife in amazement. What was the source of the fear in her voice? Who is he? He asked in the authoritative voice of a man who was never afraid to speak, threatening to shake the walls of the house. In a faint voice, Amathly responded, He is our son. Tara jumped up as if snake-bit, spilling the steaming mug with the hand holding the staff. Abram, he shouted, immediately trying to take back the name, lest some nearby servant overhear it. Amathly nodded in silence, letting her husband fall into his chair, understanding the consequences of the news that had been delivered to him. Are you sure it is him? He inquired, hoping against hope that it was not true. Amathly shook her head with a half-sad grin. A mother knows her own child. But you told me you sealed the cave behind him. How could he have survived? I do not know, but this is the situation as it stands. How does he look? Amathly smiled maternally. He looks handsome and healthy. He resembles you. Tara buried his head in his hands. His fondest wish was that it might be a mere nightmare. Where is he? He finally managed to ask, realizing he could not wake himself from this scene. I put him in the back room so he could not hear what we were talking about. Amathly got up to pour her husband another mug. Tara drew inward, thinking feverishly about some stratagem to extricate himself from the danger he had thought dead and gone for years. What are we to do with him? He whispered as if to himself. Amathly took the initiative and answered the question she had anticipated. I have thought about it. We must talk to him, explain the situation, present him the two options he has. Either he may stay with us and learn our trade, or he must strike out on his own. Do you think he will learn our trade? The last time I allowed you to visit him in the cave, you gave me the impression that he was a little madman. He believes in nonsense and rubbish, and he defies everything which we hold dear. Why would you think he has changed? Tara felt he was about to lose his own mind. I think he will agree to at least pretend that he is a believer. Perhaps the simplest thing is to kill him. He will not be the first or last person I kill. It's inconceivable that he remain here alongside Nahor and Haran. He is still capable of ruining them with his apostasy. Tara heard Amathly burst into tears at the thought of her third-born being condemned to death for a third time, and he knew she could not bear it. The woman cried and sobbed, begging her husband not to touch the boy. Tara felt a rebellious tear seek to burst from his own eye at his wife's weeping. I have an idea, she whispered as she wiped the tears from her eyes. We will send him to Grandfather Noah and Father Shem. They are very far away from here. There is nothing for him here. He may live with them, and we may have peace. My youngest child may grow up far away from me, but at least I will know that his death was not at my hands. Tara got up quickly, happy with the creative solution his wife had come up with. He dispatched one of the slaves, secretly ordering him to harness a horse to the cart and take the boy to Noah and Shem, dwelling in the land of Canaan. He decided that the slave would pay with his life for the mission, so that no one would remain to reveal his dark secret. It took 2 weeks of riding from Haran to the land of Canaan. On his return, the slave was murdered, and Abram the heretic was forgotten. Chapter 11. Abram,